John Allen Mollenhauer, also known as Jam. I'm a performance lifestyle coach and entrepreneur, and I started eating 100% plants at the age of 19 years old. 1 year after being a bodybuilder, where I was eating almost 100% animals.
You went from 100% animals to 100% plant-based at 19.
Yes.
And why in the world would you do that?
You know, I was sitting in a bodybuilder's gym. I'm talking about the kind of gym that has like 160-pound dumbbells, sweat pouring off the front. It was my first gym. I bought it when I was 19 years old. And one day I got a little rag magazine called The Health Reporter. It was written by a guy named T.C. Fry. And I don't know how it made its way into my gym. And I started reading all this health information, and I literally could not believe my eyes. I literally, 1 year later, I had sold my gym, and I started selling health courses out in Austin, Texas, just because I was so inspired by the overall message. This was right at the time when Fit for Life was really a huge book. And I had done some work with Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins used to work with the Fit for Life people, Marilyn and Harvey Diamond, and it all kind of connected. And I literally just changed my entire diet, and people literally thought I was crazy. Yeah, because I used to wake up, literally could not imagine a life without eating chicken, fish, eggs. Like, I used to eat a predominantly animal product-based diet, and then I moved to 100% plant.
And what year about was this?
Well, I'm 54, so I was 19, just about 20, right around there. So this would have been like 1990.
You started reading this information, and that was enough confirmation that you could remove animals safely from your diet and not have to worry about being nutrient deprived?
Well, I learned that all protein comes from greens.
Yeah.
And all protein comes from greens, right? Without all the negative side effects. And then I learned all the disease impact of the food that we were eating. And I'm at 19 going, oh my God, at 24, 34, 44, I'm gonna be a heart disease. I'm gonna have cancer. I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna have that. And I realized all these problems. It was literally like taking the blue pill and stepping out of the matrix. I'm not sure if it's the blue or the red, but one of those. And it literally just woke me up. It was like a revelation.
But you got a gym, and
Yes.
99% of the people in there, and nobody around you sees this. Just you?
Nobody. It was total fitness lifestyle, right? I had already graduated from the default standard American way of life of eating whatever, whenever. And then I graduated to the fitness lifestyle where it was all about working out, but then it was about a high protein, animal product centric diet where you were either trying to lose weight or build muscle. And that's an entire paradigm in the market. Like 40%, 50% of the population buys into this. They're not even into a healthy lifestyle yet. It's about fitness, and just because they're not eating the standard American diet, and they're now eating, chicken and fish, it's marketed to them as this is a way of life. And that's the paradigm most people have born into. And then they realize that it's not really promoting their health. And that was the paradigm I was in when I got introduced to, a plant-centric, plant-exclusive, vegan diet. And I ate that way for, instantly. I just changed my diet. Because I got it. I was like, wow, and part of it was because the guy who wrote the magazine was prolific writer. And I had never seen that kind of language anywhere in any book at that time. So I just switched. And I've been eating that way ever since.
When you're 19, you feel invincible. You're probably healthy feeling whether you're healthy or not, right? Maybe you didn't notice any difference, but did you notice any difference that you recall?
Did I notice any difference? I was a 250-pound, like Mr. New Jersey type bodybuilder. Within 1 year, I was like 160 pounds. I literally lost half myself. So this was, and by the way, you're talking 30 years ago. This is before this was really out there. I mean, it was out there amongst the subculture of people, but it wasn't something that was very mainstream. And all the different foods and services that are available today to eat this way, a genuinely healthy way, didn't exist in 1990. And not a lot of people were talking about it. We're talking pre-internet. So I'm really dating myself here. But it was a very, very tough thing for me to do. Like, I did it fast, and I was very on purpose, and I got it, right? Between Tony Robbins talking about, high water content rich foods, between the Fit for Life book, which was going through the roof at that time. I got exposed to the American Natural Hygiene Society, which is now the NHA. All of these things all hit at the exact same time. And then I'm in this bodybuilder's gym, and I'm reading this magazine called The Health Reporter, and it completely changed my life. So I just switched. But dude, I had a lot of psychological issues around it at the start. Just because I was like a needle in a haystack. That's not the way it is today. Today you're not a needle in a haystack anymore. I mean, there's a lot of needles in that haystack. There's still a big haystack, but there's a lot of needles in that haystack. You're not alone.
But did you make any kind of gains? Was that a good thing, losing weight?
Well, what happened was my body literally rebuilt itself, right? So my body, when it was introduced to higher quality nutriment, literally just discarded all the old stuff and literally rebuilt itself up in a healthy way. So people around me initially, like, I don't know how well this is going to go over for your viewers, but at that time, they were like, do you have AIDS? You know, because I literally lost half myself, half my body. Wow. Just changed. But within 1 to 2 years, I was back up to 180, 190, was working out incredibly well. But I didn't have the health problems. I didn't have the acne. I didn't have the skin problems. I didn't have the digestive issues. I didn't have all those things that are consistent with a high animal protein, high dairy, plus refined food diet, gone. And I just became a new person.
What kind of food were you eating?
You mean prior?
No,
Prior to making that change?
Sure, we can go there first.
Well, I mean, I would wake up, I'd eat probably 30 eggs a day. I would eat chicken and fish at every meal. I didn't even know what an avocado was. Right? I didn't know what an avocado was. You know, you like vegetables at that point in time was like, you know, lima beans and carrots, and, you know, once you'd have like a little side salad, but that was it.
So what did you switch to?
Well, that was what got me on the whole journey to where I am today. It started with food, and it starts with food. It starts with fitness, and it starts with food. I already had the fitness part down, but the food part, now I've improved on fitness, but the food part becomes the central thing in people's change to a healthier lifestyle, and or I should say a healthy lifestyle. But for some people, they don't change it far enough, so it's not really a healthy lifestyle. It's just better, right, than what they had before. But I was eating salads. Of course, you do this all wrong at the start. You know, at the start, there was a short period of time I was a fruitarian. I literally ate nothing but fruit. And that's ridiculous. It's, you know, even though the sugar in these foods is not like refined and added sugar, it's still high in sugar. So you can't base your diet on fruit. You got to base your diet on vegetables, because they're 100 calories a pound and you can eat lots of them. But you know, we didn't really kind of have the lifestyle that we have today, where you understand the dressings, you understand that the salad is the main meal, you know, where that was what you looked forward to each meal, right? I still had the old mindset from the fitness lifestyle, and I had to switch to where salads, and I started eating some tofu. I remember going to one of the first Whole Foods. I mean, I started eating dried fruit. I mean, you start taking chips away at this, and you get caught in these little cul-de-sacs along the way. But each time you just keep improving the diet, and eventually you arrive at the fact that you want, you know, leafy greens, green vegetables, colored vegetables, starchy vegetables. You want fruits, you want beans, legumes, you want nuts and seeds, you want whole grains, high intact grains. You base your diet that way. Right, and then you can eat a lot of these foods, and you get your rhythm, you get the balance, and it all works together. But you never run out of protein. I mean, you'd have to be literally deficient in calories. I learned that from Fuhrman, Dr. Joel Fuhrman. You'd have to be deficient in calories to ever be deficient in protein. And all protein comes from greens. I mean, think about it. Protein is carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. You could not get enough protein as hard as you tried, as long as you weren't deficient in calories. If you were eating real whole foods, you're going to get plenty of protein.
Do you see a need for supplementing protein?
Well, listen, my biggest mentor in this space has been Joel Fuhrman. You know, I mean, I'm always going to credit him. I publish a website, you know, on nutrient density. But Fuhrman's always been my primary mentor. I met him at the American Natural Hygiene Society. It was Georgetown, like 1989, 1990, right in that year.
You talking about, is that the same hygiene?
Yeah, it's this.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. American Natural Hygiene Society was what the National Health Association was before it changed its name. Yeah. And I remember looking at Joel going, wow, that guy's going to be huge. And he ended up being huge, right?
And what year was this about?
This was right around 1990.
Yeah, wow.
You know? And I learned, and I still learn, a ton from him. And all the doctors. You know, I've spent time out at True North, and, you know, I've been reading Health Science magazine for a long time. You just keep learning and building and learning and building, and you just eventually you just stabilize and you just get it. I mean, I stayed at his house for a year or two. I saw the inside.
You
when
stayed a whole year
at Joel Fuhrman's house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to
whole
live
year?
there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I
I stayed there like 3 nights one time.
What were you doing, like a fasting institute?
No, I was just there doing some video work.
Yeah, he and Lisa really, if I were writing my next book, I've written a few books, but if I was writing my next book right now, they'll always be in the gratitude page, the acknowledgments, because they've influenced my life just tremendously. The thing about this eating style and is that eating a whole food, plant-based, got to be plant. I go to 100% plant-based, which is vegan. You realize that this is where the nutrients are. Right? This is where the nutrients are. Besides the fact that it's absolute, animal production is incredibly bad on the environment. Like, it couldn't be worse, actually. When I'm out there in the world, this isn't my primary platform, but don't think for a second I don't know that, animals have families. I don't know what the actual number is right now. You have to talk to Gene Bauer about that, but that's like billions of animals per year. Now, fund that you got to supply that with water. You got to supply that with waste cleanup. You got to supply that with all this kind of stuff. It is a nightmare. Yeah. And ethically, it's off the charts.
And we started talking about supplements, but they supplement the animals that people are eating. I mean, people act like, oh, you got to supplement B12, but they're putting B12 in the animals.
Well, I'm not the first person to say this, but really, cut out the middleman. I mean, you just eat straight at the source, and plants. Plants are genuine whole foods. What makes a whole food is the nutrient complex that's in it, right? So take a piece of chicken, for example. It's got no water. It's got no fiber. It's got 0 phytochemicals in it. That's what makes a healthy food healthy, phytochemicals. So you have 0, right? It's got some vitamins and minerals, but it's already been through the animal's metabolism. So the vitamin A that went in is not the vitamin A that comes out.
No carbohydrates.
No carbohydrates whatsoever. It's loaded with dietary saturated fat and cholesterol, and there's no requirement for dietary saturated fat or cholesterol. You actually have no requirement for cholesterol other than what's produced in your own liver.
Well, some might argue there's no requirement for fiber, I guess, because it's not essential or whatever.
Fiber moves you, for one. Number 2, it affects absorption of nutrients, okay? So you need fiber in a fruit, otherwise you're even though it's healthy sugar and it's coming with nutrients in it, it has to be time released into the body. You need fiber. So, I love how they said that for years. They were like, phytochemicals are non-essential. These are the essential vitamins and minerals. But phytochemicals were non-essential. You know why you don't see phytochemicals on labels? Why? You know why?
Be a lot. There's thousands.
Yeah, you'd have to wallpaper this room. You'd literally have to wallpaper this entire room to label all the things that are actually in a banana, in kale, right? Yeah. And we think like, okay, a banana, potassium. It's not even like the highest potassium food out there, right? But you don't know all these other things that are in these foods, and it's the micronutrient content as a whole that's keeping you healthy. That's cleaning up your cells, that's promoting your immune system, that's doing all these things. That doesn't happen in a piece of chicken. It just helps you grow rapidly, lose weight initially because you don't have carbohydrate in there initially, and it ages you faster, and everything else. We're not even into the humanity and the ethics of it yet. We're just on the nutritional level. On the nutritional level, it's a disaster.
Why would carbohydrates make you gain weight?
Why would carbohydrates make you gain weight? Well,
because it kind of sounded like you said that they don't have carbohydrates, so you lose weight initially.
Well, I was a bodybuilder, right? When you wanted to get ready for a show, carbohydrates, 1 gram of carbohydrates holds 4 grams of water, right? It's part of what keeps you healthy, right? When you cut carbohydrate out of the diet, you can get very lean very fast. The only thing is you can't sustain it because you're eating nutrient-poor foods to begin with. But when I'm talking about carbohydrates, I'm talking about whole food carbohydrates. I'm talking about fruits, I'm talking about vegetables, I'm talking about the things you get from plant foods, all right? The minute you move over to a fake carbohydrate, where it's a manufactured, refined and added salt, oil, sugar, all that kind of stuff, or refined and added sugar in this case, it's even worse. Plus, it's disease causing because there's no nutrients with it, and it's refined in add. It's a drug, right? So, but when people eat animal products, it all goes back to the origin of bodybuilding, like Arnold Schwarzenegger type stuff, right? Arnold Schwarzenegger promotes plants. He wakes up to a smoothie. This is the father of bodybuilding, all right? This is the guy that I used to follow in the bodybuilding world. He doesn't want heart disease. He doesn't want cancer. Arnold has always been a leader, and he switched his diet. So the rest of you guys who are following Arnold, thinking that he's waking up to chicken and eggs every day, you got the guy wrong. Yeah. Again, I can't speak to whether or not he's a vegan or not, but I can say he eats at least a largely plant-based diet because he understands the virtue. And even Arnold's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding was promoting broccoli as having the same amount of protein as chicken and steak, right? So, but when you take a bodybuilder's diet and you initially go on a bodybuilder's diet, you will lose a lot of water, and you will lose some fat. And that diet has replayed itself 100 ways. Atkins, paleo, keto, I mean, nourishing traditions. Oh my God, all you gotta do is like, this guy's basing it based on science. All you gotta do is put a lily pad in front of a fig leaf in front of your groin, and therefore, we've been doing it for 10,000 years, so therefore we should do it now, right? The ketogenic diet, right? And I'm going to say this publicly. Animal product-based ketogenic diets promoted by any doctor is malpractice. And I'm publicly saying that.
Unless it's for like epilepsy.
Unless it's for epilepsy or there's like a medical issue. And there's a time and place for that. Yeah. But promoting it as a way of
weight loss, diabetes,
it's malpractice.
Heart disease, things like that.
It's
even cancer, that's the big one right now, and there may be something to it for that, but it doesn't have to be animal based.
It's not a healthy way to go. I mean, the universe didn't bring forth food to us that on one front it's supposed to be promoting your health, but at the exact same time it can promote cancer and heart disease. That's messed up. That means you're left somewhere in the middle to say, well, I can only eat a certain amount in a certain way. Humans aren't that smart, okay? I mean, we're intelligent, but that's too difficult a thing. Yeah. When you're eating plants, you don't have to worry about that stuff.
You don't even have to count calories.
Listen, you can gain weight eating a very healthy diet. I've done that, and a lot of people have done that, right? If you're eating for the wrong reasons, if you're eating for stress purposes, and you're eating nuts, and you're eating loads of fruit, you can gain weight eating incredibly healthy foods. Like eating the world's best foods, you can gain weight. If you're eating for the wrong reasons and you're not waiting until you're hungry again, you can gain weight. If you're eating the right way,
the right variety,
right, with vegetables at the base of your diet, which are only 100 calories a pound, you'll do incredibly well. And you never have to worry about. You don't worry about cancer and heart disease because you're not producing that.
It's so funny you're saying 100 calories per pound. I haven't heard that before. Or no, is that right?
Yeah.
100 calories per, because that's amazing. So I was at Whole Foods the other day, and I got some vegan cookies.
Sure.
And they were 100 calories per cookie. And there's no way that cookie weighs a freaking pound. Like, imagine a pound of, like, vegetables next to one cookie. Like, the difference there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, listen, this is where, look, every concept in the dietary world has its golden side and has a little bit of a shadow side, right? And vegan has a little bit of a shadow side because vegan is predominantly about not eating animals, right?
I think the shadow side is the corporations trying to take advantage of it.
Oh, heck yeah, they're taking advantage of it. So now you think you're eating vegan, you're like, well, I've gone vegan, but you're still you're basically eating junk food. You can't get away from, a healthy vegan diet is whole foods. It's not just plant-based, it's plants.
Well, I say based because mushrooms aren't plant.
Right, well, plant-based doesn't necessarily mean vegan.
Yeah.
A very important part to remember.
In my case it does, though, because it means whole food plant-based, occasionally you could eat a processed cookie. Occasionally you could eat a mushroom.
Sure.
Or every day eat a mushroom,
Sure, well, a lot of people interpret that, too, as occasionally you can eat a small amount of animal food. So, like, vegan is vegan. Plant-based means the bulk of your diet is based on plants.
Exactly.
And then some people add other foods on top. Vegan is 100%, right? And it's 100%, and it's not just about dietary, but it's also about ethics. It's also about making sure that we're not ruining the rest of the species on the planet for our own addiction, right? I'm in full support of everyone going 100% plant-based, okay? And people may not always be called maybe to the ethical side of things. They may not be called to that initially. For some people, that's their initial reason why they changed their diet. They weren't thinking nutrition when they started. They were just thinking, just don't eat animals.
That's what that means.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Some people come from the opposite direction, and that's okay too, right? But at the end of the day, you can get all your nutrient needs met. All of your nutrient needs met eating plants. You can do that. And like I know in my own approach, I don't promote animal product consumption. I acknowledge that some people may eat small amounts of animal products, but I'm not promoting that. And certainly not from a nutritional standpoint. And I always put my 2 cents in on why, like I'll bring up the ethics of this. And I have a 6-year-old daughter. If
she plant-based?
if you're 100%.
Nice.
Right?
Vegan, basically vegan.
Oh, she's vegan. Yeah, she's 100%. From birth.
Nice.
She's never eaten any chicken, fish, anything. I'm sure when she goes to daycare every once in a while they throw her a cracker, right?
with a cheese on it.
Somehow something gets in there. But even if she were to eat a slice of pizza, we take all the cheese off, right? And she'll just leave the vegetables on there, and she'll do things. So she's not 100% whole food, only because the child influences. She'll get some dough in there, and she'll have a little. I'm sure there's some salt and some stuff in there. But you do the best you can at the end of the day, right? It's not a religion. You do the absolute best you can, right? And that's the philosophy I've always had. So, go ahead.
I don't know, I was just going to say, I'm really glad you brought up your daughter because that's a big part of what I'm wanting to evolve the message here overall is it's not only healthy, appropriate for every stage of life, but it's probably the best way to raise your children. And then that's going to be the biggest movement moving forward.
I could not agree with that more because think about it. Animal foods are very stimulating. They're very addictive. Right? And that doesn't mean you get a healthy addiction to healthy foods, right? Because you just love them and they're nourishing. But animal foods are slightly different. They're very stimulating, they're very addictive. It's like drinking coffee, in my opinion, right? It's like taking caffeine. Your body has to put forth an immense amount of life force to turn a chicken into a human. The umami taste, you start getting hooked on it. And when you're starting to get those sorts of sensations at 2 and 3 and 4 years old, now you have to spend a measurable percentage of your lifetime getting out of that, right? So the thing I'm excited about with my daughter is that, she only knows blackberries and avocado. She only knows that. And, she goes, oh God, when I go to my daughter's daycare, there are young girls who come in there and they're eating chicken McNuggets and Cheez-Its.
They're probably already,
I've been eating this
they're
way for
already
35
overweight, probably even.
Not even yet, but it's coming. Because, I learned from, God, where did I learn this from? There are 7 stages of disease. And the first is toxemia. Toxemia is when you start taking toxins, you start putting them in, it was the Health Seekers Yearbook. Victoria Bidwell from years ago, right? She used to drive around in this big, she's a big vegan van, and she used to travel all over the country, and she put out this thing called the Health Seekers Yearbook. And I remember reading this initially in there, and it's never left me. The first stage of disease is toxemia. That's where you start taking in some toxic food, and it starts to, overpower your blood system, right? The blood is now just filled with toxic waste, right? And you don't really experience anything outwardly just yet. And then you move to toxicosis. And toxicosis is the second stage. So now toxins keep building up in your system. Do you want me to go down this route?
Yeah.
You still keep building up, and all of a sudden you start getting like irritation, right? Right, because your tissues are now getting saturated.
I've heard of that. Like, are you saying itchy skin?
Yeah, like itchy skin, right? You're not quite at eczema or psoriasis yet. I'm getting there. And it builds up and it starts saturating your tissues, and all kinds of things can happen, like cellular malfunction and all kinds of things can start to take place. So you got toxemia, then you got toxicosis. Then you get irritation. Now things are really starting to build up. So in the first 2 stages, everything can seem like it's fine. It hasn't quite progressed to the third. Now you start getting itchy skin, and you start getting rashes, and you start getting different things because the toxic buildup in your body is just getting more and more intense. You can throw another Cheez-It, throw another fried chicken McNugget, throw another this, throw another that, and you get all this kind of stuff that starts building up in your body. Refined added and salt, oil, sugar, all this kind of stuff that's all just man-made concoctions that you're throwing into our food, and we get addicted to this stuff at an early age. Then you go from toxemia to toxicosis to irritation to inflammation. Now the body starts taking all this waste, and if you think about like where are the parts of your body where you have the most space to sort of quarantine off waste, it's in your joints, right? You have a lot of open space there, right? So this is when your joints start to hurt, your hands start to hurt, because you have this toxic buildup that's just getting worse and worse and worse. So you get inflammation, body-wide inflammation, that's going to be weight gain, right? So you're eating all these refined and added carbohydrates and more chicken, and now you're like clogging up the receptors with all the saturated fat and all the cholesterol, and you're like pre-diabetic, if not diabetic at this point. So toxemia, toxicosis, irritation, inflammation, your body starts expelling it out of your skin. Ulceration, okay? Ulceration. You literally get pimples and boils and acne. Now this toxic waste is built up and it's exploding out of your body, literally exploding out of your body. And some people, this gets really bad. My father had psoriasis and eczema. His hands used to just literally crack. I remember growing up, my father's hands were wrapped because there would be blood all over them, and it was just a disaster. And I remember the only time in my entire growing up years that my father did not have bad psoriasis is he went to Joel Fuhrman's place, stayed at his house, and fasted for 2 weeks. When I tell you the man came back, his hands were clear.
Wow.
And then he went right back to eating ice cream and everything else, and it's there, you know, eventually psoriasis and eczema sort of die off as you get older and older, right? Okay. And it sort of cleared up with him. But the only time it was ever clear when he was in his prime was when he fasted for 10 weeks. So then you go to ulceration, and then you go to induration. And induration is when the body's like, my God, so much toxicity in my body, it's gotten crazy. It walls it off and creates a tumor. So a tumor is literally walled off waste. It's like the body just accumulated it all, put a nice little wrap around it, and sticks it somewhere. And that's the precursor to cancer. If you've got tumors, you've pushed the body to a point where you literally, if you keep going, you're going to drive your cells crazy, and they're going to start replicating, you know, bad DNA and RNA, and before you know it, you got cancer, and you got cancerous cells all over the body. Well, some measurable percentage, I'm not the expert on this, but some measurable percentage, maybe because of the way their parents live, will get cancer young. But for the most part, cancer, like most lifestyle-induced diseases, which is 85 to 95% of all diseases, I side on the 95% side, right? That's a stat from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. They earn it. They earn cancer with their fork. And take it back to animal foods. Animal foods promote cancer. See, bodybuilders, and I'm speaking as a bodybuilder now, right? From years ago. This is my inner bodybuilder. I'm channeling, right? Bodybuilders, they eat animal foods to promote leanness and to gain muscle fast. And animal products, they have all the amino acids at the highest level because it's the finished product, right? So when we eat protein, what do we want to build? We want to build lean muscle mass, right? So you have all the constituent amino acids at the highest level. So the body doesn't have to assemble them. So like broccoli has all the amino acids, but it's high in one, medium in one, a little low in the other. And you then eat that, and then you eat, some romaine lettuce, which has a different nutrient profile, and those two combine, and you get all your protein, and your body recycles protein, and it recycles even tissue, right? So you're getting plenty of protein, but the growth is slower because your body is naturally assembling all this stuff. In animal foods, it's all right there. So it promotes rapid growth because the body doesn't have to go through its natural cycle anymore and assemble this protein together. But it also promotes rapid aging. Now look at bodybuilders. Bodybuilders look like they're 60 when they're 40, and they look like they're 80 when they're 60. And then when those guys change their diet, and they're not on this rapid growth, they literally start to look young again, right? But when they were big and huge, they look, kids look like, middle-aged men. It's amazing. It's an amazing dynamic. But it's rapid growth, so that means rapid hormone release, rapid everything else. It's rapid everything. The whole metabolism is rapid. Plus, it takes an enormous amount of energy to break animal protein down, so you use an enormous amount of energy to do it, which is why you age. And then factor in the fact that you're clogging your arteries and saturated fat. All you got to do is go on YouTube and search bodybuilder deaths. Mr. Olympia is dropping dead at 60, 70. 50. I mean, the 2018 Mr. Olympia is already dead. Liver disease, heart disease, right? These foods don't promote health, guys. They don't promote health. They're nutrient poor. Remember what we were talking about earlier. No water, no fiber, no healthy carbohydrate. You're not eating real healthy fat. You're eating unhealthy fat, dietary cholesterol produced in the animal's liver, the saturated fat that was stored from the food that the cow ate. You're now eating this sticky, gooey, waxy substance that's going in your body that you don't have any requirement for. So it just messes up the entire system. So, you can tell I'm passionate about getting people to eat whole food. And if you can get to 100% plant, do it. Because a lot of times I'll promote 90% or more. And there's a strategy behind this, and if you'll let me do it. I actually got this idea originally from John Robbins. Now, John Robbins wrote, he wrote Diet for a New Planet.
America.
What was
Diet
this?
for a New America.
Diet for a New America. That's right. I'm messing him up with Diet for a New Planet, which is the people the woman who screwed up the whole protein thing. Remember that? She said you couldn't get complete, I forget her name. You couldn't get complete food combining, you couldn't get complete protein. What was her name?
I don't know. I just remember the combining part.
Yeah, it was incomplete protein and that kind. It was
rice and beans.
Yeah, you had to combine them, which was all nonsense, right? So John Robbins said, if the whole world ate 10% less animal foods, nobody would go hungry. So then I was thinking, well, shoot, if you got people to eating 90% or more plant-based, you're going to completely change the world. Yeah. Not to mention, completely change people's health.
Yeah, I mean, because you have to think, there's 8 billion people, and if 8 billion people are going to eat animals every day, you got to have like 50 times as many animals as there are people to feed them those animals.
Oh yeah, not to mention a battleships worth of water to raise each animal, which basically means that we're steering all the resources away from people and pushing it towards animal food, which then kills you. It's a vicious cycle of epic proportions. But here's what happens. When you get to 90%, right? Remember, not promoting animal product consumption. I'm acknowledging that a person may eat small amounts of animal products as they transition to plants, okay? If you get to 90%, there's a very unique dynamic that you're actually saying to somebody, look, 10% of the time, eat whatever you want. But by the time you get to 90%, you don't actually want to utilize that 10% that way. Do you understand this? No, yeah. It's sort of backdoor getting someone to 100%. But it works, because when it's all or nothing straight out of the gate for the person who's not ethically or morally motivated, those people will literally cut in 2 seconds, okay? Yeah. But if you're coming at this from the nutrition side, like you have heart disease or you have cancer, you've been eating this way your entire life for a long period of time. Black and white is a little bit hard, and I've been through that process, right? It's a little challenging, okay? But if you get somebody to 90%, first of all, the whole world's a better place, and you just saved a boatload of animals, okay? When you get to 90%, you know you got that 10% there. And sometimes you have to use that 10% because I'll give you a quick example. My daughter graduated from preschool the other day, and they had a piece of cake, and my daughter came up to me. My daughter, she eats plant foods, but the refined food side of things, that finds its way in every once in a while, right? So they had a piece of cake, and she came up, she's like, Daddy, have a piece of my graduation cake. Now, am I going to give her a nutritional lecture? Am I going to go, honey, no, refined added salt and sugar, you can't do that, no. She should be like, she'd cry, right? I'm not going to destroy her moment. Right? So I eat a little piece of the cake, right?
Spit out. No, just kidding.
Right? Right? But, right? God help me. No. So you just do it, and you don't make it mean anything because you understand what's going on. But that's such a rare occurrence, right? Now imagine I went into I had like a big deal on the line. And I'm in a foreign country, and someone comes out and serves something with love to me and says, we'd really like you to eat this and join in. Like there's a moment I might be a little flexible, just because I don't want to blow up someone's heart, right? There's a lot of people who serve unhealthy food, and they're serving love, right? But they don't know the difference. They're not even thinking about this sort of stuff. Yeah. So there are moments, but here's the point. Here's the main point. The main point is when you're at 90% or more, your body will not tolerate this stuff. It doesn't like it. Like if I get a little piece of some animal food hit my system doesn't like it. I get a sore throat, right? And I learned that through experience. If you're eating like refined in salt, oil, and sugar, even more so.
Yeah. Last year I was at the NHA conference where we are now. When I left, I had to drive 10 hours home. We stopped by a restaurant just to get something to eat. And salt, oil, and sugar is going to be in the restaurant.
Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
Man, I couldn't even put that stuff in my mouth after eating so clean for 3 days. Like,
oh, my God. It's like I can't even tolerate this, right?
How is it so dramatically different? Like, it's just incredible how desensitized we get,
Well, I've had people come up to me. I'm sure you've had this too. They're like, well, God, John, you're so disciplined. I'm like, discipline, really? You really think I'm living this way because of discipline? Now, I'm a disciplined guy, but that's not the point. The reason why you don't eat these foods, it's pain avoidance. There's nothing worse than like going and having a soup at Denny's that's like got more salt in it than soup. And you're sneezing and your nose is running because this is a sign of health. Your body cleans itself.
It's trying to avoid that toxicity.
It doesn't want the toxicity. So when you don't have toxemia and you don't have toxicosis and you don't have irritation and inflammation and you're not into these progressive, these far off, ulceration, induration, and cancer, when your body's not primed for that and it responds fast, you put something foreign in the system, it responds fast. And very quickly you're like, no, I'm not going this route. So, depending on what people's goals are at the start. Me personally, if a person doesn't want to go vegan straight from the start, that's not my goal. That's not even my goal for them, right? My goal is I know that these foods, once you start putting them in the system, your body will take you there, right? If you have the ethical and moral elements of being a vegan working for you at the start, if your consciousness is high enough and you're aware enough, amen, even further. But you have to also be very careful in making sure that you get the nutritional side of this down. There's a lot of very unhealthy vegans out there. I know I'm not saying anything new to your audience, right? They know this, right? You can be vegan and just get the same heart disease and cancer like everyone else because you're eating, vegan whatever, right? And that gets back to that golden shadow side that we talked about earlier. If it's leveraged for the wrong reasons. In vegan, the number one reason, it's essentially a plant-based diet, right? It's a whole food, plant-based, nutrient-rich diet, but it's all plants. You're just not eating animal foods. And there's bigger reasons why you're doing it, right? And I happen to be for that. I've always been for that.
I heard, if you look up like how many people fail at their diet, it's like 80%. Sometimes it's 50. Sometimes the stats are all over the place. But it's like the majority of people fail at dieting. And when you have this ethical core, you'll find a way. In your case, you're saying some people might go into it for nutritional reasons, and then their body helps them find a way. But sometimes people listen to their body and don't know how to interpret it properly. And that's where I try to
Oh, that's a good point. I've never heard it put that way, but that's a very good point.
Like somebody smoking, they think, I need to smoke every time I go do this thing because I'm conditioned myself to do that.
Right.
As if, fresh air is toxic or something. So it's easy to think, I need a cigarette. People say that all the time that smoke. I need a cigarette.
Yeah.
They say, I need it.
No, it's a very good point you're bringing up. I mean, if I heard you correctly, you're basically saying when you have moral and ethical standards also in that transition, like even when your body doesn't feel so good in the moment, or like you're in a pleasure-seeking mode, your moral standards will override that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great.
Otherwise,
point.
you don't have when the social pressures get tough.
Yeah, it's a great
You don't have a
point.
reason to stand your ground. You might as well just eat whatever. But I was just wondering when you say you went vegan, you cut it out like right then and there, and you went from eating all animals. You went from eating all animal to all plants.
Yeah.
Like it's like you went straight into it without having to transition. You weren't really primed up for it even.
No. I got a lot of things wrong.
Yeah.
I got a lot of things wrong.
And
if I had continued eating that early diet, I would have been unhealthy.
And you didn't even have the ethical underpinning. You just had that intelligence, the intelligence there of having learned what you learned, which is cool. It's not that common that happens. A lot of times people just fail like they do with every diet, or they discover they may have an allergy because they're introducing all these new foods, and then they're like falsely attribute it to everything and overgeneralize and go back to eating animals. Or, maybe there's just this acclimation period.
This is actually the first time I've actually ever said this. You have an exclusive. I'm giving you an exclusive right now.
What do you mean?
This is what I'm about to say. I've never said before.
Okay, say it.
I was always driven by optimal. I was always driven by optimal.
What serves you?
So, what serves you? What enables you to live your true potential? What's going to enable you to fully express your highest potential, right? Achieve your highest potential, right? And I've always been minded that way. And by the way, part of that was influenced by this organization, because I remember reading Lenin's Natural Hygiene Handbook 30 plus years ago, where he was talking about all the fundamentals: air, water, sun, this, that, right? Nutritious food, etc. I started to build an early lifestyle concept. I teach performance lifestyle today, and it was very much influenced by that original book, right? Because you got to learn the fundamentals of lifestyle, and you want your fundamentals. If you're consciously establishing a lifestyle, you want to make sure that the fundamental you're building it on is the optimal concept. You don't want to plant your flag halfway up the mountain and stay stuck there and be like, and now you have to justify that your whole life. But like walking, right? What's the operative principle of walking? It's gravity.
Okay.
Right? Because when you're walking, you're constantly falling. Gravity is always pulling you down. So you have to post your leg. And again, so, when my daughter's, she's 6 years old, she had to learn gravity first and foremost. And now she's in alignment with gravity her whole life, right? And whenever she loses that alignment, she falls. And same would be true for us. Step off a curb, forget that gravity takes you down, you're going down, right? There's a fundamental like that for every aspect of lifestyle. When it comes to food, that food's got to be whole, based on nutrient content. It's got to be plant, because plants don't supply anything that your body doesn't need, right? Now, I know somebody's out there going,
oxalates.
There's an exotic plant, it'll kill you.
Or anti-nutrients.
Right? Or phytochemicals. Phytochemicals are like, they're hormetic, they're against your body, don't eat them, right? Guys, you have this wrong. Flat out wrong. Take it up with me anytime, but you have this all wrong, okay? They don't supply anything of any significant level. I know if you're going to eat the seeds of apples and you eat a whole bunch of them, you're probably not going to feel too good. But you're not supposed to eat the seeds of apples, right? You're supposed to eat the apple. The operative principle is whole food. It's got to be plants, and it's got to be nutrient rich. And nutrient rich means it's high phytochemical content, high micronutrient, what we were talking about before. You can wallpaper the room with the micronutrient content of food. But you see, all I had to do was figure that out, and I made that change in a second. Because I don't want to spend half my life making up for problems for how I'm eating. Some people spend 20 years just learning how to eat. That's sad. 20 years just learning how to fuel your body? You follow?
Yeah.
And if you're doing it right, it's either going to be largely vegan or vegan. Because it's going to be 100% plants, right? So why should I, in troubled situations or unusual situations, maybe, but I'm not making that decision for ethical reasons, right? I'm just accommodating the world, which is sometimes challenging to live in. The ethical, like you were saying before, helps you really make that decision. It helps you be staunch about it. Yeah. But then from a nutritional standpoint, it's what's optimal. So, and I guess now that I'm talking this out loud, I guess it's what's optimal too for the planet. Like, we shouldn't be slaughtering 56 billion animals. Well, I really had that number off before, didn't I? Yeah. I was like, yeah, it's like 2 billion animals a year. Right?
Yeah.
That's like the first half of the month.
Well, if you include the fish, aquatic life, it's in the trillions.
Oh, yeah, come on, guys. This is insanity. It's insanity. You know, I'm not lacking for protein, right? I mean, you could literally, who put these stats out? I think it was Colin Campbell. You know, like romaine lettuce is 14 to 16% protein.
I love it. I could eat a whole
Right?
head of romaine.
Joel Fuhrman used to have this. It was kale's the new beef. I once put out a graphic, romaine is the new chicken. You know, like a whole head of that. Yeah. I mean, you eat that, it's actually pretty hearty, right? I mean, it's
easy to eat a whole head too.
Easy. Throw a little avocado on that. That is amazing. It's just fantastic. So optimal is what gives you the ability. If you're committed to optimal, you'll make changes very, very fast.
Yeah. I guess, what kind of got us in this direction was the whole idea of listening to your body, because sometimes it might be difficult if they're older than you were when you went.
Yeah.
They've acclimated or conditioned themselves to microbiome that's used to eating meat, eggs, and dairy, then there might be a transition to getting the beans to where they're not so uncomfortable maybe at first.
Oh, no, there's no question about that. And
then listening to your body, you might be like, oh, I'm gassy, I need to eat animal.
Oh my God, it happens all the time. Yeah. I commissioned, you remember, Michael Clapper?
Oh yeah, I've interviewed him. I got a cool interview with him.
Oh, he's a cool cat, man. He is such a treasure trove. I had him write a paper. This was about 10 years ago. It was called The Failure to Thrive. And it was about why people get tired in the transition from animals to plants. Right? And it kind of ties in a little bit to, if you're jacked up on animal product all day long, it's like you're on a nonstop espresso machine. You run on power. So when you sleep, you're recharging the body. Okay? You run on power, electricity, voltage. Calories are what help you fuel, pad, and build the body. But energy, life force, in the East they call it chi or prana, right? If you talk to a spiritual person, they'll call it the divinity within. If you talk to Tony Robbins, it's the unlimited power. If you talk to a scientist, it's voltage. It's life force. So when you take in a food, any food, from water to a porterhouse steak, your body has to put forth life force to consume that food and do something with it. You follow me?
Yeah, metabolize it. Yeah.
So when you put in a porterhouse steak, you have to put an enormous amount of life force to turn that steak into a human and get rid of the waste. And then deal with the ongoing effects of all the stuff that should have never been in your body to begin with. You put in romaine lettuce, it doesn't take that much life force. I believe from a calorie standpoint, it takes 25% of calories to digest a steak. It takes 3% of calories to digest romaine lettuce, right? It takes an enormous amount of life force to digest a cow in your fragile little digestive system, which is biological. It's not like it's a meat grinder. It's a biological machine. Cells working and talking with each other. It's life force. And that's why you age so much faster, because it takes an enormous amount of life force to break these foods down, right?
Yeah, and those byproducts of that metabolic process are pretty toxic too.
And the byproducts are toxic. And then you got the buildup of all the sticky, gooey, waxy substances that your body doesn't need, which combined with some refined food is going to give you diabetes. Like, you don't get diabetes alone from the Milky Way bars you're eating. You get diabetes because the saturated fat and cholesterol from the meat clogged up your insulin receptors, and then you throw refined and added salt, oil, and sugar on top of that, and now you can't uptake the insulin, you got diabetes, and it's a nightmare.
Intramyocellular lipids.
Yes, right? Yeah. So I don't know where we were going with this segment, but the point is that...
You went from prana, I think.
Oh, it takes life force.
Yeah.
It takes life force to eat a calorie-dense, nutrient-poor food source. Yeah. So if you want to get to optimal, you got to be eating plants from a dietary perspective. Yeah. There's a lot of other aspects of lifestyle. I teach performance lifestyle for a living, so there's other aspects of lifestyle. Not everything is solved by dietary issues.
No, I know. Yeah, like the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. I love referencing those.
Yeah, because there's more to health than food, right?
What are those pillars for you besides food?
Well, I've actually mapped 31 of them. Yeah. And food, fitness, and sleep are about 8% of the lifestyle equation. You know, eating, moving, sleeping those are the core essentials of lifestyle.
I think that's what the previous interview said. True North uses those three same pillars. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, eating, moving, and sleeping. I mean, you got to fuel your body, you got to keep your body conditioned, and you need to make sure that you're recharging. But there's a lot of other variables in this. Because people generally, and this is, I'm getting into a little performance lifestyle lingo here, most people wake up to be successful. They don't wake up to be healthy. This is part of the reason why people struggle with health to begin with. Because you wake up, you got your job, you got a family to feed, you got your career to go to, you got to get into New York. I'm from the East Coast. You know, you got to get in and out. You got a lot of things that you got to do. You got the internet, you got all kinds of media hitting you all day long. I mean, people have to be successful. You got to be able to support yourself. And part of the reason why people get unhealthy is because they skip over all the fundamentals, because no sooner do they literally roll out of bed and they're right into their job. You know, there's no morning routine, there's no daytime routine, there's no nighttime routine, right? And in order to like start to optimize the way you're living, which would include a whole food, plants, not only based, but if you take it all the way, right? 100% plants, nutrient-rich diet, right?
I like saying whole food plant exclusive sometimes.
Whole food plant exclusive diet, right? And you do that because that's where all the goodness is, okay? You got to get your fundamentals down. You got to get your your lifestyle, right? It's one thing, but it's made up of several things, which is to our point, right? Yeah. So, you know, you've got are you spirit driven or are you psychologically driven? You know, I joke about this. I say this in jest if you're listening to this. You know, are you a psycho or are you spiritually driven? You know, some people literally can't get out of their own way because they're living like walking thinking things, or like walking psychologies, right? A walking psychology is someone who's just their thoughts, their feelings, and their emotions. Something new comes in and someone says, hey, you should be eating a plant-based diet. Oh my God, I could never do that. Give up meat? They're not even present to you. They're just coming from a story. They're reacting. They're coming from a feeling. They're coming from emotion, right? And whoever, you know, whatever community they're in, they can never change that. They're not like going, well, what's the rationale for doing that? Yeah. And, oh, you mean it doesn't cause disease?
They're not being genuinely inquisitive.
Doesn't deplete your life force? Keeps you healthy? Oh, great, I'll do that, right? That's someone who's coming from what they really are. They're coming from a spirit, an open-minded place. That's a fundamental of lifestyle. Most people don't look at it that way, but that's probably the most fundamental lifestyle principle there is. Being in right relationship with your body and your brain, and not being so reactive and so emotional and coming from the past. You got to be present and geared. Making changes in any other aspect of lifestyle depends on that, or else you'll spend most of your time overcoming resistance. I'll tell you a quick story. I started off as a fitness trainer in the gym business. I bought my first gym when I was 19. And I used to remember just to joke to people, I'm like, wow, I'm only 20% trainer, 80% psychologist, right? Why? Because you have to help people get over their stuff. Yeah. They're coming from experience and their story, and you have to get them over their story to even like get to the next step. Wow. And the only way you can break free of that is to like, okay, well, you know, what's the operative principle of like how I should operate, right? I'm not my brain, I'm not my feelings, I'm not my thoughts. Those are things that I've associated to the experiences of my life. My brain accumulates memories. And if life rolled out perfect, wonderful. Everything sort of flows. But if life wasn't so grand, and you had trauma and you had acute childhood events and all kinds of things that took place, it can mess up your whole life. So you got to get in right relationship with your brain and your body, right? And get grounded in what you really are, not always who and how you think you are, right? And now you're actually free. And that's an enlightenment conversation, and we can move on to that at another time. But other fundamentals, you got to be in alignment with circadian rhythms. You could eat the most amazing food in the world, but stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning every night. You'll still be a burnout, right? You're never going to get the full potential of the quality of the food that you're eating because you don't even sleep, right? Sleep is 1/3 of your entire life. It's off the table. It's like your contract coming into life. You got to get your sleep down. But then there's rest and recovery and relaxation and meditation and rejuvenation. You got to get, of course, food down, fitness down. You got to get your psychology down. You got to You got to own your schedule. You got to make sure you're preventing overwhelm. And then aspects of lifestyle that most people don't even think about as being part of your lifestyle, you've got to be directed, right? You got to know what's driving you. You got to have support. You have to have a team around you. You have to have finances. There's a lot of really broke, healthy people out there who are so healthy, but they're not well. They don't have well-being because they're broke. You got to know your game. You have to have an intention, a direction, and a strategy. You have to know the game that you're playing and play it really well. You got to serve and engage other people. These are really incredibly important parts of lifestyle. And they're just as important as how well you fuel your body. And by the way, when it comes to food, I always teach fueling first. It's fueling. I remember being a fat, healthy eater because I was going through like some really stressful time periods. I didn't have other skills down. And, I would just eat 50 almonds, half the bag of cashews. 9,000 calories later, you're wondering why you're gaining weight, right? You want to eat for the right reasons. Yeah. And the primary reason is to fuel your body, right? Yeah. All the culinary stuff that we learn, all that kind of stuff is, it's all secondary. It's down the road. And for some people, it's just a living. Fundamentally in our lives, it's about how do you want to fuel your body? And I'm a human performance guy. I've always been a human performance guy because I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. And when you're an entrepreneur, ask any entrepreneur. You have to function and perform very well. If you're going through an entrepreneurial experience, coping with I'm exhausted, throw coffee down. I have to eat to stimulate my way through the day. I don't exercise because I don't have enough energy left over. Sleep, it's optional, right? This is how a lot of people live. Even
sex. Who has sex?
Sex, right? It's great. Let's do it for a little while, and then after a while, you're chasing the headboards when your wife or husband are coming after you, right? Because you're just too tired to even deal with it. I've been there to these places. These are the dark nights of the soul. But you got to be able to function and perform well. And to bring this back to diet, since we're at a largely a food-centric conference, you want to free your energy up. You're not going to do that with chicken and fish. Chicken and fish take your energy. Plants free your energy. Freeze it all up. It doesn't take that much energy to digest a huge salad. It just doesn't do it, right? And the nutrients are so readily available. They're not all tied up in this complex, wrapped in, advanced glycation end products and cancerous, you know what I mean? Oh my God, you just don't have all this stuff to deal with. And as a performance lifestyle coach, you're dealing with how well you function and perform. Do I enjoy food? Yes. Do I love sitting down to amazing meals? Of course I do, right? But that's 10% of the time. The other 90% of the time, I'm eating in a way that frees my energy so that I can do this, so I can make an influence on and impact the world. I don't want to be dealing with pre-diabetes and cancer and heart disease and irritation and digestive issues and stomach problems and weight issues. Neurodegenerative diseases. These are things that distract and hold you back from living your life fully.
Arthritis.
Asthma. To me, that's the number one reason why people should be switching their diet. And then, look, at that point, you don't even have to worry about a lot of the other issues because it's you realize, wow, selfishly speaking, I'm not going to eat in a way that's going to kill me, right? And I have a 6-year-old daughter. I mean, I had her at 49. I'm 54. We're 5 years apart. Yeah. Same birthday.
Wow.
Same half hour.
No
October
way.
5th. October 5th. At 11:30, we were both born at the same time, 50 years apart. I literally want to be here when she is 50. Now, am I going to get there? Am I going to see my daughter when she's 50? That means I'm 100, okay? Yeah. I was 49, she was 1. I'm 100. John Robbins, I have to be healthy at 100. How am I going to be healthy at 100? You're telling me I'm going to be healthy at 100 eating pork rinds? No, it's not going to happen. Chances are pretty good it's not going to happen.
So when it comes to these pillars of lifestyle medicine, for example, I've been thinking about those a lot lately over the last 6 months or so. As I've been doing these interviews, how it applies to my own personal life, I'm realizing what makes all of this work quintessentially, and it's love. Without love, you're not going to sleep well. You're not going to care about what you eat. You're not going to exercise. Self-love but love from others. You know, like the love thing is really, to me, becoming this thing that needs to be talked about more, you know?
I agree. And, you know, most people have a warped image of what love is. Like some people, love is lust. For some people, love is you complete me in relationships. Some people think, you know, it's the excitement of getting in a relationship or getting a ring, or somebody's doing something for you, so therefore you love them, right? Oh, I love you, right? Like they have all these very in the world insights around, or interpretations around what love is. But love is the basic human condition, right? If you're really coming from what you really are, right? I would call that a spirit-driven life, right? If you're grounded in, you know, the enthusiasm, entheos, the God within, right? The universe within you, the spirit within you, the unlimited power within you, that is love. Love is energy. If you're coming from that place, and it's what's adding to, like everything you do in the world is coming wholeheartedly from a place of love, first and foremost. You're not premeditated. You know, you're not trying to get over on someone. You know, you're open to the unfolding of the universe, so to speak, right? That's a loving place. And that generally leads to goodness and doing things that are right for the world. The minute you leave all that and it's nothing but profit motivation and it's nothing but this and that, you get caught up in all kinds of, you know, things. But I agree with you. I mean, love's the centerpiece. And by the way, you're talking to a guy who I probably wouldn't have even said that 10 years ago. Maybe not even 5 years ago. Definitely not 25 or 30 years ago, right? But now that I understand what love actually is.
What would you have said then?
Oh, I mean, shoot, at one point I was an egomaniac. I was just an ego. Yeah. I was a walking thinking thing. I was a psychology. There was no higher self. I wasn't grounded in the bigger thing. I wasn't connected to the whole, right? I didn't see myself in everything, right? I didn't know how to beam you love. I didn't know how to do that. Now I know, because I'm more aware, I'm more conscious, I'm awakened. When I was unawakened, you know, it was like any other human being. You know, you have your own motivations, what's good for me, you know, there's lack, there's unabundance, you're full of tons of addictions, you know, food addictions, this addiction, that addiction, you know, and you just sort of cope through life. You know, interesting thing about lifestyle, I'm a lifestyle expert, and every aspect of lifestyle is in fact a coping mechanism. So like you eat to cope with hunger, you drink to cope with thirst. You change your thoughts to cope with an ill feeling, right? You're coping with stress as it's coming at you in life. You know, if you think about a baby who's born, a baby's born like she's all nice and warm in the mother's womb and everything's fine. She comes out, somebody spanks her, she's like, wah, right? She's crying. Like all of a sudden she has the stress of the world to deal with. Now she's got to process information, make good decisions, worry about, you know, people protecting her and, you know what I mean, not falling off the curb, right? Right? You have life stress. And every aspect of lifestyle, right? I tried to do it a little justice early on because there's a lot of different aspects of lifestyle. You're coping with stress. That's what it is. And that's why you have to get masterful around lifestyle. You have to consciously establish a lifestyle. Right? You get one by default. Your parents will hand it down to you. Your church will give it to you. You know, whatever influences came and hit you, they'll do it. You'll have various influence. Your coach will influence you. Maybe your teacher. Maybe just the age you are. That'll influence your lifestyle. Advertisers will certainly influence your lifestyle. Right?
VeganLinked YouTube channel.
VeganLinked will definitely influence your lifestyle. If you're fortunate to see this channel early, your lifestyle is never going to be the same. Okay? This interview will enhance your lifestyle. Every aspect of lifestyle is a coping mechanism. You're coping with the stress of life. Dr. Hans Selye, who was the father of stress, he actually coined the term, stress. Oh. Hans Selye is his name, right?
Stress is a physiological reaction to a perceived threat, right?
Yes, on one front, but like this interview is stressful too. It's not stressful because I think it's negative or I think it's hard.
Or challenging or whatever.
Or challenging. It's still a stress. I'm putting out energy to deal with the demand of this interview, which is talk for almost an hour. That's a stress. So I might have to take a nap at some point later in the evening to cope with that stress, to regenerate my energy so I can face the demand of everything else that's happening today. I didn't even plan on this happening today.
That's a good point. Like some people think I'm paying people to do this.
No. He just yanked me off the line. He's like, I want to interview you. Right? That's how it happened, right? So you have to cope with stress. Stress doesn't mean, stress is not a bad word. There's distress, that's bad.
Eustress, de-stress, whatever.
There's stress, there's eustress, but it's still all stress. It still takes energy to deal with it. Are we coping with stress in ways that create more stress and fatigue and pain? Or are we coping with stress in ways that create more energy and freedom? Now, in my opinion, a plant-based diet, a plant-exclusive diet, which I agree with that term, a plant-exclusive diet, do you know how much stress that frees you from? That you don't have to deal with, that other people have to deal with? They have to spend a measurable percentage of their entire life dealing with losing weight, dealing with high blood pressure, dealing with that progression of diseases that I talked about earlier, which for some people consumes their entire life, dealing with the effects of medications, dealing with the heart disease that they're going to get, the diabetes, heart disease, and cancer, which I think it's, these statistics have been around a long time, but 1 out of 2 die of heart disease, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3 die of heart disease, 1 out of 3 dies of cancer, and then diabetes and everything else, right? And then all the hospital time and all this kind of stuff. You have to spend a measurable percentage of your life just recovering from lifestyle-induced diseases. I don't want to spend any of my time spending distracted and held back by lifestyle-induced diseases. If I break a leg, that's emergency medicine, right? And I'm sure everybody listening to this, and you and I included, will agree that emergency medicine is amazing. It couldn't be better, right? The after meal may not be so great, right, while you're in the hospital. But the care is off the charts. But relying on medicine for health care is disease management. And that's not it. Lifestyle is the only thing that produces energy, health, and high performance. Lifestyle produces energy, health, and high performance. And you have to consciously establish a lifestyle. So when it comes to food, you have to consciously choose. This is one element of lifestyle. You have to consciously choose how you are going to eat. And most people have never even thought of that. They just go through life, live,
whatever's there.
Whatever's there. It's the default. They never even get to the fitness lifestyle where they're eating, taking supplements and eating, foods that promote weight loss and growth.
You're making me think of some people say, "Oh, well, it's my choice." I'm like, man, you're not even thinking. You're just doing what's default. You were conditioned this way your whole life to do this. And
yeah, that's so true. You're not even thinking. You're just you're a video player, just regurgitating the commercial that you had a fond feeling towards 20 years ago that said, chicken is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Which in and of itself is a stupid statement because sliced bread's not even good for you. So it's refined foods, now you're eating animal products, and you've eaten them your whole life, and your whole family's eaten them their whole life, and you have holidays that associate lots of cheer to eating, big festive birds every single year. It's just the way you grew up, and you're just saying that. You've never consciously chosen anything with regards to how you eat. Maybe you're not eating, that big meal at 10 o'clock at night, and you consciously chose that, and that's to be applauded, right? But what we're talking about is saying, what you and I are talking about is not a diet. I mean, it is a diet in a sense, but it's not a diet like a weight loss diet or this diet or that. It's a quality standard. We're talking about a quality standard here. We're talking, how am I going to fuel my body? And do it in such a way that I'm not going to drain my energy, my life force. I'm not going to clog my arteries. I'm going to maintain my health. And I'm going to be able to function and perform really well so that I'm not distracted and held back by any lifestyle-induced diseases. That's what we're really saying here.
I love it, love it.
Okay? And the answer to that is clear. Now I get everybody listening, you're going to say, well, I could do a little bit of this or a little bit of that and I'll probably still be okay. And you might have a good argument, okay? But at the end of the day, what we're focusing on right here is not all the minuscule I's and T's. We're focusing on the main point. Let's keep the main thing the main thing. If you want to be healthy, if you want to have energy and not deplete it with a full belly all day long, if you want to stay healthy, if you want to function and perform well and not spend a measurable percentage of your life distracted and held back by lifestyle-induced diseases, from a nutritional point of view, you need to eat whole food, that were grown, that means plants, that are nutrient rich and don't provide anything that your body doesn't need from food. If you do that in food, your life will be measurably better. If you now take that same mentality and you start dragging it out across the other aspects of lifestyle, remember, your lifestyle is one thing. You have a lifestyle and I have a lifestyle. But if you take total ownership of your whole lifestyle, you can live your full potential. And for most people, that will start from food. And it bears repeating. I'm going to say this one more time on this because it really bears repeating. You have basically 3 or 4 different ways of living in this world. You can live by default. And default living is mainly dictated by advertisers. And advertisers could care less about your health. They just care about the profit. Some do, but you get my point. You could take the next stage and you can move to, let's say, a fitness lifestyle where you're working out and it's all about weight loss and muscle gain in that space. And that's your level of consciousness. You're not thinking about your spirit. You're not thinking about your health. You're not talking about steering clear of disease, right? You're not talking about what you're up to in the world yet. You're just wanting to be better. And this step is to be applauded. Even though it's largely based on animal foods, the fitness world is largely an animal food centric. And by the way, that's 40% of the population. 57% of the population is living by default. 40% of the population is living a fitness-oriented lifestyle. They work out, get some sleep at the end of the day, right? They're not even thinking about sleep, but they just, maybe sleeps a little bit. You start paying a little bit of attention to it, but it's largely about working out and your diet. Taking lots of supplements, that's a paradigm. That's 40% of the population, and it will not leave you healthy. You'll if you make it to 77, I think it's 73.9 and 83.9, that's the average death rate for men and women after they've spent a lot of time in the hospital, okay?
You're saying the average
age of death.
For the average person?
Men is 73.9, and for women it's
I thought maybe you were talking about bodybuilders.
Oh, shoot, bodybuilders don't go that far. Yeah. Bodybuilders don't go that far. Bodybuilders die in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, and their 70s, early, okay, if they make it to their 70s. There's no videos on the 90-year-old bodybuilders, okay? It's just the guy's a genetic freak if he pulls that off, okay? Then there's the third paradigm, and the third paradigm is you live the typical healthy lifestyle. The typical healthy lifestyle is no better than the prior, okay? And by the way, these are marketplaces. Default for sure is a marketplace. Fitness lifestyle is a marketplace because there's all kinds of stuff that hover around that. And then you got the typical healthy lifestyle, which is I don't drink, I don't smoke, which shouldn't even be listed in this because drinking and smoking are man-made products. That's not a measure of a healthy lifestyle if you're not drinking and smoking. Well, listen, I live healthy, I don't take cocaine. That's not a definition of a healthy lifestyle, right? And you're eating healthier. Maybe you're eating more vegetables, but you're still probably eating tons of animal products because of the prior influences. You're taking your supplements, you eat the pastry and follow it up with a broccoli chaser, and you're like, got my vitamins in. You're exercising 3 times a week. Maybe you have a body mass index of less than 25. You're pretty much a guaranteed candidate for dying at 73 or earlier. If you have no stress and life is good, when I say no stress, meaning like you have a good financial life, supportive family, and all these other type of things, maybe you'll push the 80s. But you're not going beyond that. You're going to leave 20 to 25%, for some people 30% of their life expectancy, you're just going to leave it off the table. The whole fourth quarter is going to disappear in any one of those paradigms. And then you move to the next paradigm. Now this paradigm, okay, today it's called biohacking, right? Or lifestyle optimization, right? People like Joel Fuhrman, the American Natural Hygiene Society, and the National Health Association, right? National Health Association, ironically, before this terminology even existed, was already pushing optimal, long before optimal was even in. You agree? Optimal, before optimal was even in. Actually, part of the reason why I'm all for optimal today is because of the National Health Association. The National Health Association was pushing optimal before optimal was even a word. Today, because of influencers and the internet and conversations like this, people are pushing, we're in the age of better now. Like you want to live optimally, right? It's the new argument. The new argument is, this isn't just about the ethics or the this. That's important, very important. I want to say that emphatically, okay? This isn't just about eating healthy. This is about living optimally. I want to be better. It's like approaching life with like the mindset and the skill set of an elite athlete. Because people want to look, feel, they want to perform great. They want to be in good shape. They don't want to spend all this time, and they want to live to 100 so they can see the 6-year-old like me, right? This is when you go deep. This isn't just exercise a little bit more, eat a little bit less, eat a little bit better, get an extra hour of sleep here and there, don't drink, don't smoke, try to be positive. That's amateur. Where we are today is we're going into the world of optimal. It's about lifestyle optimization, and we have the data. We know the principles. We know the practices. We even know the lifestyle strategies. And when you connect the dots on all of them, your whole life transforms. I'm not talking personal development here. I'm talking about lifestyle optimization. You can engage in personal development your entire life, career development, focus on your career, be ultra successful. We just got out of a tour from Vitamix, and I was listening to, I think his name was Bill Bernard, who was the founder of Vitamix. We just did a tour here at the National Health Association. And this was 1949. And I watched the video. This was just 2 hours ago.
What was 1949?
The first infomercial was put out by Vitamix. And Bill Bernard, who's the founder of Vitamix, is saying, this was in 1949. I watched him. He said, watch this. You can look it up on YouTube. It's the first infomercial. Put Barnard and Vitamix. I'm listening to his message while we're on the tour, and he says, health is wealth. If you're successful and you've lost your health, you're a complete failure.
With health, we have wealth. We're the richest person on earth. Without health, you're a miserable failure.
Now, I'm all for that message, right? But I'm like, I don't know if I'd say you're a complete failure, but you failed, right? And this was in 1949. It was the first infomercial. This guy was selling Vitamixes. It's amazing. Yeah. So he was going deep. He was way ahead of the curve. I mean, way. He was not only eating healthy, but he was producing machines to help you eat healthy in 1949, right? I wasn't coming for another 20 years. Anyway, the point is that now you go deep. You got to dive deep into nutrition. Get your nutrition right. Dive deep into sleep. Get your sleep right. Dive deep into regeneration. Get your energy back. Dive deep into the fundamentals of lifestyle, and you crush it. But you're no longer getting crushed by excess stress and fatigue. You're no longer distracted because you have heart disease and cancer and diabetes and weight problems and acne and this and that, all of which are lifestyle induced. When you start going deep dive, once you start now building a critical mass and you start to optimize the way you're living, now you're starting to live a healthy performance lifestyle. Cornerstone to that. It's not quite the crux, but it is a cornerstone. You've got to be eating whole food. You've got to be eating plant-based or exclusive, okay? And you've got to be eating nutrient-rich. That food has got to be nutrient-rich. It's got to have health-promoting protein. It's got to have real food carbohydrate, not fake food carbohydrate. It's got to have healthy fats. It's got to have water. It's got to have fiber. It's got to have vitamins. It's got to have minerals. And it's got to have phytochemicals. And you automatically know you are off the mark the minute your food doesn't have phytochemicals. And does chicken have phytochemicals? Not even 1%. I mean, even meat has a little bit of carbohydrate in it.
They say plants are on average 64 times more antioxidant rich.
Yeah.
Because the plants, the animal used those antioxidants up to metabolize the plants it ate.
Right, but you're talking vitamins and minerals. You can make the argument that the tissues of a shrimp are nutrient rich because it floats and is grazing on algae all day long, so the tissues might be saturated with something, with more phytochemical content. But that's not an argument to eat shrimp, because shrimp are also loaded with cholesterol, right? Like, why do I want that? All right, but you get my point. My point is, it's got to be nutrient rich, which means the one category of nutrients which makes a healthy food healthy, and I have to credit this insight from Joel Fuhrman, the one category of nutrients which is the marker, it's what makes a nutrient-rich food nutrient-rich, and a lot of people don't they miss this point. What makes a nutrient-rich food nutrient-rich? It has phytochemicals. All the nutrients, the non-essential nutrients that are not on the label. That's what makes a nutrient-rich food nutrient-rich. You get that right, you can get all the other categories of nutrients right. You get that wrong, you'd have to be eating an animal product-based diet. And that is not good for longevity. It's not good for performance. And by the way, I've been mentioning this performance lifestyle that I've been talking about, right? It's about engaging in healthy performance in your day. All the fundamentals of living, you get them down so that you can function and perform well in your life. Not burn out, not trade your health for success, okay? Which is basically what everybody does. That's why people struggle with living healthy, because they don't understand the fundamentals of human performance. They understand a little bit about nutrition, a little bit about fitness, but a little bit about sleep, a little bit about thinking positive, right? They don't understand the fundamentals of human performance. When you understand the fundamentals of human performance, now you really start stepping it up. You want to get your lifestyle working for you. And from a dietary standpoint, you're not going to do that if you're not getting phytochemicals.
Yeah. You said something really cool. People don't wake up. They wake up to be successful, not to be healthy.
Yeah, people don't wake up to be healthy.
Do you have any tips on how to flip that around? Or like me, actually, I almost have the opposite thing going on. I try to wake up to be healthy, even though I'm not doing the best. I'm probably mediocre, but
no, I would argue that even you don't wake up to be healthy.
Yeah.
No.
You're probably right. You're right.
You don't wake up to be healthy. Yeah. It's not actually in your DNA to wake up to be healthy. You wake up to be successful. You value your health. And I'm putting some words in your mouth, but you don't want to burn out, and you don't want to trade your health for that success. So what you've done is you're in that fourth circle that I was talking about. You're beyond default. You're not just working out and eating animal protein, for weight gain and muscle loss. You're not just living the typical healthy lifestyle. You might have a little bit of influence from that, because that's how most of us were raised. You're actually in the lifestyle optimization space. Yeah. Now, your reasons for being there might not be for lifestyle optimization, but the way you're eating is.
I love this. I didn't really know when you first told me what you did or your title. I didn't really understand it. It's like a lifestyle coach, I guess, kind of, right?
Yeah, but see, there's lifestyle. You could have a health coach, and a health coach wouldn't be that much different than a lifestyle coach. Mm-hmm. But lifestyle coaches are different because lifestyle coaches pay attention to more than a health coach or a nutrition coach.
Like other behaviors, like.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, if you look at, everybody wants to live a holistic lifestyle these days. You want a holistic lifestyle, you pay attention to a performance lifestyle, because now you're dealing with the entire lifestyle equation. It's not HOLISTIC, right? It's WHOLE. You have a whole lifestyle. You need a whole lifestyle. Some lifestyle coaches are not there. If you're a performance lifestyle coach, you're there. Because it takes you like 20 years to become a performance lifestyle coach. You can't just you don't just take a quick certification and you're done.
What do you do?
Well, you can. I mean, at this point, because the lifestyle is defined, it takes you probably 1 to 3 years to become a performance lifestyle.
What did you do to become one?
It took me 20 years.
You mean through everything you've done, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I discovered the idea in elite athletics. But even pro athletes and top athletes don't really know how to live a performance lifestyle. Remember, most athletes, the best performers arguably in the world, they have talent in their game. Typically, they have youth, they have genetics, and they're very skillful. That doesn't mean they eat the healthiest diet. That doesn't mean, their training is probably more exceptional than anything else. They probably get a lot of sleep, right? They focus on psychology, but that doesn't mean they have the healthiest lifestyles in the world. It just means that in the most critical elements of lifestyle that enable them to play their sport, they excel really well in. And then when they stop playing their sport, they don't live nearly as good, right? They fall right back into the default lifestyle that most people live. But the thing that I got from that was that when you live a performance lifestyle, I spent most of my career defining it. So I got certification by default, in a way. But it took me 25 years. And that was focusing on it regularly. I mean, to where it was really an executable way of life. Okay? It took me 25 years. Now, did I get, plant-based certificate from, Colin Campbell at Cornell, and go through the, nutritional excellence trainer with Joel Fuhrman, and go to Coach U, and go through Optimize and Heroic, and I mean, I've been through tons of training, but ultimately, you got to get grounded in experience in living a performance lifestyle if you're going to coach it. So it's anywhere from 1 at a beginner level to 2 years to 3 years before you really can become a great performance lifestyle coach. And every 3-year period after that, you'll become better and better and better. But the crux of it is this. The main idea of it is you want to get a lifestyle that's working for you, not against you. You want to have a lifestyle that supports you and what you're up to in the world, where you're no longer distracted and held back by what we refer to as hidden lifestyle challenges. So like if you're eating a nutrient-poor diet, that's a hidden lifestyle challenge. That problem will show up in your life over and over and over again until you deal with the original fundamental, the original cause. The original cause is that you're eating nutrient-poor foods, and you're never going to be healthy eating nutrient-poor foods. You have to be eating nutrient-rich foods. But you have to deal with confusion, lack of direction, overwhelm, not in right relationship with your brain. You got to get spiritually driven. So you're not like constantly coming from resistance in your life. There's fundamentals for every aspect of lifestyle. And when you true them all up, oh my God, it's a whole different way of life. That's called lifestyle optimization. Biohacking is like lifestyle optimization. Biohacking is mostly around advanced recuperation and recovery, rejuvenation and recovery. Right? So oxygen and light and sauna, light beds and supplements and things like that, and oxygen chambers and things. That's mainly what I own a biohacking facility, so it's called Regena Center. So I know a lot about that stuff. Getting your life fundamentally, where you understand the principles, the practices, and the lifestyle strategy of healthy, high-achieving people, like what enables you to flourish and thrive, that's next. That's when you really take total ownership of your lifestyle. That is when, like we were talking about before, you are waking up to be successful. But you do all these things to be successful. You eat the way you do to be successful. You focus the way you do to be successful. You own your schedule the way you do to be successful. You exercise and train the way you do to be successful. Yes, you want to look and feel good, but you want to ultimately perform good. You ever hear the statement, look, feel, and perform? In the performance world, right? A lot of people will say you want to look, feel, and perform better. I like to say perform, look, and feel better. Because if you're living to perform well, I'm not talking about performance addiction, where you're constantly, like you can't stop yourself. That's the addiction to performance, and that's not what I'm talking about here. If you wake up to live in such a way so that you can function and perform well, you're not over this, under this, over this, under this. You're not skipping sleep, right? You're not fueling your body improperly. You're not skipping exercise. You're getting all your needs met. Mm-hmm. That's called lifestyle optimization. You wake up to be successful, but you don't skip. You don't skip sleep. You don't not rest. You don't not recover. You don't not eat a nutrient-rich diet. You don't not train. You don't skip all these things to be successful. You do those things to be successful. That's how athletes think. An athlete can't be on 3 hours of sleep, eat a crappy diet, not train, and go out on the football field and win. They can't. An athlete has to perform at a very high level. But in order to, you have to be healthy to perform at a very high level. And in order to be healthy, you have to have a lot of energy to be at a high level. So you have to build a lifestyle routine that fully supports you and what you're up to in the world. So the lifestyle is what makes you successful. And our whole culture teaches you the reverse. They say, get successful so you can live a better lifestyle. What I'm saying is, live a better lifestyle and you'll be successful. And great, you start making a lot of money, you do the same thing just at a higher level. You spiral up. So instead of going to, you're living in, working out in the garage, maybe you're at Equinox. Or, that's a high posh gym, right? Maybe, you just do the same fundamentals just at a higher level. Maybe you hire a chef and you don't have to make food. Most people interpret lifestyle as something materialistic, or what they wear, or what they can afford, or what they own, or this. But I'm not talking about that definition of lifestyle. I'm talking about how you live is how you achieve your goals. So how do I want to achieve my goals? Do I want to be coping with an unhealthy diet just because I have no time? No. I'm going to fuel my body right so that I can achieve my goals. And then when I achieve my goals, if you go back to what Bill Barnard said from Vitamix, I want to be healthy and wealthy. Now when I'm wealthy and have lots of cash, I don't have diabetes. So you got to get your needs met in the process of achieving your goals. And what you find is that when you get your needs met in the process of achieving your goals, not only do you have a better quality of life, but you achieve your goals at a much higher level than when you're dealing with all these problems. because of a suboptimal way of life, which one aspect of that is eating. And your eating style, it's a pretty good idea, should probably be optimal. And what's optimal? Is eating chicken, fish, and steak optimal? No, not even close. There's 3 classes of foods: nutrient-rich, nutrient-poor, and nutrient-barren. And nutrient-rich foods, plants. This is why you want to get to 100%. That's where all the nutrients are coming from. They provide all that your body needs, but no significant amount of anything that your body doesn't need. And when you eat them as close to their natural state as possible, you're going to flourish and thrive. Nutrient-poor foods are rich in some nutrients. Like, take chicken. It's rich in protein. You can't deny that. Might have some biotin, some zinc, right? But as a whole food, it's missing whole categories of nutrients that your body cannot flourish and thrive on. And the people who sell those foods themselves will tell you that. They are not nutrient-rich foods. Just because a food is rich in one nutrient does not make it a nutrient-rich food. A nutrient-rich food is a food that provides all the essential nutrients for your body to flourish and thrive. Chicken doesn't do it. Fish doesn't do it. Steak doesn't do it. Red meat, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't even matter if it's grass-fed. It doesn't matter if it's grass-fed organically. It doesn't matter. It's not like the grass goes into the steak and just hangs out there. So you're now eating grass. You're not even a cow. You don't eat grass, even though it's it's a plant, right? You don't eat grass. We don't eat grass. A nutrient-poor food is nutrient-poor for that very reason. You have to kind of put nutrient-barren in there because like a Milky Way is a nutrient-barren food. Like nobody's going to debate that. It's like there's no nutrients at all in it. They've all been stripped out. So if you want to optimize your lifestyle, you've got to build in an optimal eating style. And an optimal eating style is going to be plant-based. Ideally, it's probably going to be plant exclusive. And if that's your intent, bolstered by the idea that you've got there's an ethical message in there, or an ethical value is what I want to say. There's an ethical value and a moral value. That's going to rudder your ship even better. Because now, I love that point that you brought up. Now it's not just about how you feel. It's not even just about your own ability to function and perform well. You're now looking at the bigger picture of the earth and it being a sustainable organism. And it is an organism, right? The earth is an organism. It's alive. It needs oxygen. It needs water. It needs sun, just like the body. It exercises itself. It moves around. It's positive. It focuses on, granted, an earthquake, like an itch, right, kills a whole bunch of us, but it's just the earth evolving, right? And when you see the earth as an organism, I somehow can't see how we think pumping 20 billion tons of waste into our atmosphere every day, even though it might meet the law, how we think that could possibly be good. There was a train that crashed in Ohio. I think it was Ohio. I'm in Ohio. Crashed in Ohio, and it was a plane carrying plastic chemicals, and it exploded. And they showed a picture from a satellite on the huge brown spot in the Earth's atmosphere. Like, I was terrified. Like, that's still in our atmosphere. None of us are going to do this perfectly. We have 7.5 billion people on the planet. Everybody's got to keep busy selling something, and some people are going to sell plastics. And sometimes there's some stuff that's going to go wrong, okay? I understand all that. But we have to be very, very careful, and it starts with food, in my opinion, right? 56 billion animals a year getting slaughtered and all that goes into that. And I know some people's livelihoods are built on that, and they have kids, and they have to bring them through college, and they've been doing it for generations, and it's not easy to change a train going at full steam. I understand that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've had to change careers multiple times in my life. So.
But
it just is what it is,
Yeah, but we're probably going to have to. Most people are going to have to now really start to think about that, because we're on this little blue dot in the sky, and there's 7.5 billion. And by 2030, there's going to be like 9 billion people. You can't feed them on animal protein. You understand what I'm saying? 100%. You can't feed that many people animals. There isn't even enough land on the planet to do it. That's its major.
Without like squeezing them into concentrated animal feeding operations that are horrific and even more toxic in a concentrated way, for the environment in that area and all that, and the community surrounding it and all that. It's just, it's horrible. What could you be with somebody who isn't vegan or plant-based?
That's a really interesting question, and my initial thought process on that is no, but it's also yes. Like if I was really in love with somebody and they were just coming from where they were coming from. Look, if you're hanging out in my orbit, you will be eating a plant-based diet, no matter what. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And I'm a man. If a woman came into my life, and I have had a woman who came into my life, who I'm married to, and I have 2 lovely children with. She wasn't plant-based, but she shifted very quickly because you're not going to thrive in my world that way. It's just, and like when you're married, and you're with somebody. What are you going to do? Serve 2 different dinners? Like it doesn't, like you think about it. It's not like a judgmental thing. Like, oh, if you don't eat plants, you're not in my life. It's not like that. I mean, it could be like that. But you're probably not going to gel anyway because every single time you sit down to a meal, you got 2 different philosophies on life. So I think what naturally happens is that your philosophies align, or it's not going to last that long. Yeah. Right? And then the minute you bring kids into the equation, I mean, like my daughter eats blackberries and avocados and bananas, and she eats healthy food. You know what I mean? Like if my wife were putting cheese and chicken and Doritos into her life on a daily basis, we would split. Yeah. I mean, I love my wife, but I wouldn't want to raise my kids that way. Yeah. I wouldn't have even gotten to that point. We probably wouldn't have even gotten to the point of having kids. So I think the answer to the question is really no. I mean, you have to really have someone who lives a similar lifestyle to you. My wife comes from India. So in India, she grew up eating white rice. Now, white rice is not a nutrient-rich food. It once was a nutrient-rich food, right?
At least it doesn't have any arsenic on it.
Especially if it doesn't have any arsenic on it. But you get right, it's all been polished, right? It's polished food. But like there's certain foods that she's eat that I won't touch, but those are ethnic foods and they're part of her culture. And she eats roti, right? Roti's not a particularly amazingly healthy food. Every once in a while, my daughter will have a roti, but my wife's from India. That's culture. That's like their food. But she eats at least 80-90% whole food, plants, nutrient rich. And she even said, she used to, foods in India is it's like lava. It's so hot. I've grown up I'm 55. For 2/3 of my life, I've been eating largely organic or maybe not organic, but I've been eating plant foods. So I have a very natural palate, and I don't like eating super hot, spicy foods. She grew up eating spicy foods. She's been eating the way I eat for 10 years now, and she's like, God, I don't even feel like I'm Indian anymore. I can't even tolerate my own food. Right? It gets back to what we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Once you get to 80-90%, your toleration for hot sauce just falls off the cliff. You can't do it really. So you've adapted. I think that people who eat together well stay together. Better. It's not the only factor, but
I met you at a table. You were looking at some books. You were looking at Fuhrman's book and Campbell's book and
Ramses Bravo's books. Yeah. I love Ramses Bravo. He's one of the best.
And you were commenting on how you had a story to tell on every book. You said.
Yeah, there were 4 books, and I worked with Joel Fuhrman, and I still follow his work, and I do some events with him periodically. He's a mentor of mine. So, Joel he's amongst the best. Mm-hmm. Colin Campbell, I helped him publish that book, the China Study.
Oh, was it China Study or Whole?
Yeah, I helped him get a publisher for it.
For China Study?
For China Study.
Wow.
I'm actually one of the signees in that book. I endorsed it. And he wrote the book Whole with Howard Jacobson, who used to work with me. Okay. And I introduced them, and then they built this wonderful writing partnership together. And Howard's a PhD, and so's Colin. And they wrote Whole. Pleasure Trap, I introduced to a publisher when it first got started. And Ramses Bravo, that 4th book, we did a cookbook together called the Nutrient Rich Simple, Quick, and Easy Cookbook, 5 recipes or less. So I have like a little historical story with the 4 books that are being offered. And even Kathy Fisher, what's it called, the Straight Up Diet? I hear it's amazing. Huberman from the NHA says, those are his favorite recipes. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to get that book. There's a few other ones there that are great. My wife loves cauliflower bites. So I just found a plant-based recipe for cauliflower bites. So she's gonna eat that. And I'm excited about it. The titles of the talks this weekend are phenomenal.
How can people find out more about you online, and what do you have out there? Do you have your own books? Do you have a...
Yep.
Yeah, so let's share a little bit about that real quick. Yeah.
Well, I'm a performance lifestyle coach. I run performancelifestyle.com. There's a great webinar there. I highly recommend people watch it because I teach about, I'm really talking about the 5 shifts that enable people to maximize their life force energy and achieve their ambitious goals without sacrificing themselves, their bodies, or their lives. And that's a great webinar. It took me years to make that webinar. But I wrote a book with a Harvard psychologist and Phil Simms from the Giants, who's a Super Bowl quarterback, called The Curse of the Capable. Because I think that the primary cause of disease is overexertion. You know, the author who wrote the book, his previous book was Performance Addiction. And his book before that was The Power of Empathy. And we live in a highly competitive environment, highly competitive world. People wake up to be successful. And a lot of us are driven by, comparing ourselves to other people. And we wake up and we work all day long and we burn out and we trade our health for success. The antithesis of a performance-addicted life is ironically living a performance lifestyle. And I got that idea from Elite Athletics, but I spent 25 years defining it so I could get all the fundamentals all built in and then come up with a method for being able to teach people that. So that's what I do. I borrow from the metaphor of sports, which is, you want to think and live like an athlete because athletes directly link their lifestyle with their energy, health, and performance, and ultimately their success in life. And that's what makes them so effective. That's why we admire them. That doesn't mean they live the healthiest lifestyles in the world. I'm just saying, generally speaking, they connect their lifestyle with their success. I'm also launching a chain of what are called Regena centers. Because I remember before I said it's not quite the crux, nutrition is not quite the crux of a performance lifestyle. What's really the crux, meaning the main idea of a performance lifestyle is you've got to be managing your energy like a pro, right? Because it's easy to burn out in today's world. It's easy to live constantly tired, drinking coffee all day long, right? And now this is the condition of humans. Once you start to get worn down, even if you know better, you'll make crappy lifestyle choices, and then you'll cope with fatigue. But most people don't know much about energy. And I had been teaching performance lifestyle for a while. And I had just gotten into this phase where I was recognizing that, so what's the one common thread of every aspect of lifestyle? It's managing your energy. Remember how we were talking about food? When you're eating a whole food plant exclusive diet, you free up a ton of energy, life force. And life force, by the way, I know the raw food movement used to say, well, you're eating enzymes and you're getting all the life. You're not getting life force from food. You're getting calories from food. Life force comes from recharging, it comes from the sun, recharging and restoring and rejuvenating. When I was teaching performance lifestyle for a long period of time, and I realized that managing your energy is the core, it's the common thread between every aspect of lifestyle, whether it's eating, sleeping, or streamlining and simplifying your life, right? It's energy management. The one thing you don't want to let happen, other than at the end of the day, you don't want to start getting tired. You don't want to get worn down. You get tired. But you don't want to get prematurely tired, you don't want to wear yourself down, and you definitely do not want to get into burnout or chronic fatigue. And that's the pandemic that we have going on every single day. That's why the World Health Organization made burnout a disease, because it's so prevalent. That's why the coffee companies are all through the roof, the stimulant companies, all these drug companies. People are tired.
I feel like you're talking about me, man.
Listen, I'm not only talking about you, I'm talking about me. Right? I lived this way for years. Yeah. When you start managing your energy and you start getting proactive, you don't rely on sleep anymore alone. You start getting proactive around recharging, recovering, restoring, and rejuvenating your body, your whole life will change. Your whole life will change. Even if you don't know how to eat better, you'll eat better. You follow? You'll exercise more because you'll actually have the energy to do it. That's the crux. So I launched, I could keep going down that road, I won't.
But what did you launch?
I launched Regena centers.
Okay, yeah.
REGEN,
And what do you do at these Regena centers?
UScenter.com. Regenus. It was about regenerating us.
Yeah.
So Regenus centers.
Okay.
Like the main thing that people get is they get red light therapy or what's called photobiomodulation, changing the body with light. When red and infrared light hit your nervous system, you produce more ATP.
More melatonin too.
No.
Yeah, you do on a cellular level.
On a cellular level
Yeah,
from red light?
Yeah, from infrared in the morning and the evening. It helps protect.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes, you're right.
From the midday sun, yeah.
Yeah,
It's wild. It's just,
So more melatonin, right. So melatonin at the right time, you'll produce it at the right time. You produce more ATP. That's adenosine triphosphate that you produce your entire body weight in ATP every day. So when you see like old war films and they crack one of those little vials and they die, like old Nazi movies, right?
cyanide. Or
Cyanide, yeah, it stops ATP production. Producing ATP and enough of it to get through your day is really important. So when red and infrared light hit your nervous system, it detoxifies your body, increases circulation, reduces inflammation, but the number one thing it does is it promotes cellular energy production.
Nice.
Cellular energy production. So your bedrock is sleep, but then you got to have rest and recovery in your day as well. You got to supplement sleep. Sleep. If you're doing this stuff, doing what I'm doing all day long, you think 7 to 9 hours of sleep is going to cover that? No. Between the emails, the travel, the plane I was on last night, the 3 events we have this afternoon, dinner, talking to people, I'm going to get tired. And you're going to wear yourself down prematurely. So you got to get proactive around sleep, rest, recovery, etc. But I launched Regena centers to help people with that.
So red light. What else are you doing there?
Infrared saunas, compression therapy, pulsed electromagnetic field, cold plunges, contrast therapy.
You got a cryo tank?
No, I never went with cryo because cryo is really not that regenerative. Cryo is you know what hormesis is?
Yeah,
It's hormetic.
Yeah.
Like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah, I did it one time. A guy let me try it, and man, I slept better that night than I had in forever.
But you know why though?
I don't know.
Because
stressed
when
me out.
you start shivering
Yeah.
for 3 minutes, that takes an enormous amount of life force. It'll tire you out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great because.
Well, you don't really shiver because of the way it's dry cold.
Yeah, but you start shivering after 3 minutes. Yeah. Like halfway through your second minute, your third minute, you'll start to shiver. Right? But I think cryo is great. Don't get me wrong. It has a lot of great attributes to it. But for most people, I wouldn't put people in cryo. I would put people in a cold plunge before I did that, which is 100 degrees higher, but the water is right up against your skin, and it's not as cold, and it will challenge you a lot. It will highly challenge you. Probably even more so than cryotherapy.
Yeah, probably.
Because it's 34
so it's
degrees.
More hermetic then, right?
Yeah, 34 to 39 degrees is right up against your skin, so you will in fact be challenged more from a cold plunge than you will from cryo, because it's cold air.
Does it matter what time of day you do that,
Oh heck yeah, timing.
When do you do the
timing of
cold
day
plunge?
Timing of day on all this stuff is highly important.
Yeah. What about cold plunge?
Yes, it matters what time of day you do it.
What time's a good time?
Well, I would do it earlier in the day because it's highly stimulating. Right? Like I don't want high stimulants at night. That's why you take cold showers in the morning and warm showers at night. The number one lifestyle principle there is getting grounded in what you really are. What word did I use that is a little strange there? What did I say? Did I say who you are or what? You want to get grounded in what you really are.
Yeah.
Everybody goes through life as a who and a how. Like my next book coming out, it's called What Not Who, The Breakthrough. You're never gonna lose your who, but your who can change. Like you'll even hear spiritual teachers talk about, discover who you really are. It doesn't even make any sense because spirit is not human. Spirit is not your psychology. Spirit is impersonal. Okay, so when you're grounded in what you really are, you're grounded in, the intelligent, creative energy of the universe. That's what you are. Okay, that's where the zone lives. That's where flow comes from. That's where drive comes from. When things are just naturally unfolding, you're coming from that. Not from who you are. Who is powered by what you are. But if your who is not in good shape, you're going to have lots of problems. If your who is not in good shape and your how is not very skilled, people have lots of problems. Now, the only way you can change your who and your how, when we wrote the book, The Curse of the Capable, 10 years ago now, it was the hidden challenge to a balanced and healthy, high-achieving life, right? Where you can actually achieve your goals, be successful, and but you weren't distracted and held back by this one particular challenge. Now, even though we talked about a few other challenges in there, the number one challenge people have is they suffer from performance addiction. They can't stop themselves. Because, like, let's assume I'm running another channel, and I see you working all day. Well, I'd be like, well, shoot, if he's working all day, I got to work all day. That's performance addiction. You're not running your own race. You're comparing yourself against other people, and because they're going all day long, you feel like you have to go all day long. So now you're like a lemming.
You mentioned comparing earlier, and it made me think of something I wanted to share right when you said it, because it was like core to what you were talking about, I think, even. And somebody told me once to love is to stop comparing.
Correct, because now you're grounded in what you really are. What you are is love. The intelligent energy of the universe, the creative energy of the universe. Like when people meditate, they get grounded in what's called the ground of being, right? You're grounded in love. You're not thinking. You're not comparing. You're not strategizing. You're not thising. You're not thating. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're literally grounded in what you really are. That is love. You have to suspend all definitions of love that you've got and be grounded in what you really are. What? Love is impersonal. It gets personalized when it flows through your body, brain, and personality, but love is impersonal. So when you're loving and a person's just like wide open and they're like, oh, wow. Like, am I premeditated, preconceived? Am I floating around in my head while I'm doing all that? No. Right? Oh, let me help you. You just flow. That's love. So we have to wake up to what we really are and get in right relationship with our body, brain, and personality, which is who and how you are. So when I tell the story, if I say, my name is John, I was born in 1968, son of Alan, son of Doreen, I mowed lawns when I was a kid, and I say I'm an entrepreneur, I like to drink beets, but I don't like to eat beets, which, by the way, happens to be true. I don't love beets. I love beets, I just don't like eating them, but I do like drinking them. That's all my story, right? I like this, I hate this, I'm good at this, I'm terrible at this, right? That's all my story. That's who I think I am. And I'm really good at talking, but I'm not so good at writing, which is not true, but I'm just trying to make some stuff up, right? So that's how I am, or I'm temperamental, or I'm high-tempered, or I'm this, or I'm that. This isn't all true about me. I'm just making up stuff, right? That's what's called my story. You're never divorced from spirit. You'd be dead. But you can live separate. Some people are they're not grounded in what they really are. They're grounded in who and how they are. And when you're grounded in who and how you are, you might still be, you're ultimately spirit-driven, but you're more psychology-driven. Right? Psychology will draw on the intelligent energy of the universe. It will draw on your spirit. But what's driving you is really your story. And most people go through life as their story. And if life didn't roll out really well in your life, that story can be really bad. And then you keep beating the drum on how you suck at this and are great at this but are terrible at this and you can't get yourself to eat better, etc. And you keep beating that drum and beating that drum and beating that drum on telling your story. All of a sudden you become your story. And then how can you change your story from within the story itself? So, and I learned this, when we wrote The Curse of the Capable, the subtext of it was the subtext was change your story. So how do you change your story? You can't change your story from within the story itself. So at the end of the book, there's a chapter called The Spiritual Learner, meaning stay out of judgment. And this is, by the way, this is before I really woke up yet. I was still in the throes of being a performance addict when I wrote the book. That's why the author wrote the book with me. His name is Dr. Arthur Sierra McCauley. He's a PhD and he's a Harvard psychologist. And he wrote the book with me, which was a nice leg up for me. But the reason why he wrote the book with me was not because I was a great writer. He wrote the book with me because I was a performance addict. I was so psychologically driven, and that's part of the reason why I teach performance lifestyle, because I was so psychologically driven. Even though I used to own gyms, I worked with people like Fuhrman, knew a ton about nutrition. I used to think I used to sleep really well, but I realized later on that I wasn't. But I was so psychologically driven that even food and fitness couldn't save me. I was driving myself straight into the ground because I was overexerting. I was putting out so much energy, trying to achieve at such a high level, and I was going, and I woke up to be successful every day, and I was crushing it, but I was getting crushed by excess stress and fatigue. And nutrition will not save you from that. It'll keep you out of the ground, maybe prevent you getting from heart disease and cancer, but you're still going to die prematurely. You got to manage your energy. And if you're going to manage your energy, once you understand what energy is, and you get out of your head and you step back, and now you see the story for what it is. You can actually see the story from back here. You know, some people get there through meditation. Some people have a spiritual awakening in other ways. Other people start managing their energy and realize, oh my God, I am energy. If I am energy, energy and spirit are two sides of the same coin. You experience energy in your body as spirit. But you've got to be driven from that. In right relationship with your brain and your body, now you, what you really are, now you are using your head. Your head is not using you. And most people are going through life as a psycho. I don't mean like that kind of psycho with the knife, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the movie. Yeah. I'm talking about they're going through life as a psycho. They're just a story. And they have good days and bad days, and it's like constantly being on a roller coaster. If good things happen, they're high. If bad things happen, they're low, right? But when you get on ground, it's like standing next to the roller coaster and watching it go really high, and you're like, whoa, whoa, oh, whoa. But you're calm the entire time. Yeah. So when you got to get grounded, when like meditation will take you here, when you get grounded in what you are, now you can change who and how you are. You can also change the way you sleep, change the way you eat, change the way you exercise. Remember before, you're like, wow, you went from a bodybuilder's diet all the way to 100% plant exclusive, even though that language didn't exist back then, in 1 year? Yeah, because I saw it was optimal, and I was able to make that change. But here's the interesting insight about that. I was always very spirit-driven, but man, I was also a psycho. My head was, pardon the expression, but my head was full of shit. My head was just not in good working order. And it took me years to clean that up, right? So it's not that when you're coming from spirit, when you're grounded in what you really are, it doesn't mean you're gonna like spiritually bypass your head. You gotta clean your act up. You actually have to change who and how you are. You have to change who and how you are. And the way you change who and how you are is like you address your values, your rules, your behaviors. You get all of your thinking in support of what you're up to. You get in genuine relationship with other people. You clean your brain up. If you have some issues you got to deal with and you have to talk to a psychologist, talk to a psychologist. But don't stay lost in psychology for the next 20 years. Clean your stuff up. If we're going to be authentic, clean your shit up, right? Clean it up. If you have a story that's playing out poorly in your life, change that story. But you can't change the story from within the story itself. You have to step back from it. Like in The Curse of the Campbell, we talk about 5 points: uncover, discover, acknowledge, recognize, and change. So uncover the story. So if I have a story that says, if my coworkers are working really hard, then I have to work really hard too. I can't slow down. I can't stop and take care of myself. Okay, that's the story. It's not good nor bad. What are the consequences of that story? Well, what if you can't take care of yourself? What if you can't ever take a nap? What if you have to be going all the time? Well, then you have to be drinking coffee and eating your way to stimulate your way through the day. And you won't have any energy left over at the end of the day to exercise. That's a pretty heavy set of consequences. And how does that make you feel? You have to acknowledge that. Well, it makes me feel terrible. It makes me feel like I don't have control over my life. It makes me feel like I'm like an automaton. It makes me feel like I have to suffer every day. And then you have to recognize, how does that distort your thinking? Well, I wake up with no energy in the morning because I didn't get any sleep and I didn't take any breaks during the day. I can't even sleep at night. So now it makes me feel like there's something wrong with me. All right, so now that you have that data, how do you change the story? That philosophy works great. This book is great. I remember my co-author at the time saying, John, we got to do a book tour. Let's get out there. Let's do this book tour. Let's promote this book to the moon. And I remember going, Arthur, wow. 3 of the hardest years of my life, 3 of the hardest years of my life writing that book. I said, I have to do the work of the book. I'm not on the other side of this problem yet. I'm not ready to teach this to people. I know the book is correct because I harvested the dilemma and the principles and practices while in the storm. And I'm good at teaching people stuff, but I'm not on the other side of the problem yet. And I didn't get on the other side of the problem for another 5 years because it wasn't until I woke up. Because I spent a lot of time in the personal development world. I don't know if you've been to seminars before or anything like that, but you go to like personal development and you're trying to get better and you're wanting to be better and all that kind of stuff. And you go to all these personal development seminars, but somehow you can't get yourself to change. And like you're 20 seminars in and you're like, oh, here we go again. I'll be all excited, pumped up. I'll go back and do the same thing all over again, right? And I was a leader in this movement, right? But personal development alone doesn't do it. When I talk about personal development, I'm talking about like training your head. You have to be, it wasn't until I literally had awakening, right? This is where you learn how, meditation takes most people there. But I happened to go to this seminar. It wasn't even a seminar, it was an event. And I went to this for 3 days. And you couldn't tell any personal stories about yourself. I was like, wow. Then what the hell do I say? I'm like, what do I say? So the guy gets up in the front, and he sits, and he's sitting on a cushion, and he's sort of meditating. And for 3 straight days, you couldn't basically tell any personal stories about yourself. You could only ask questions about how to live better. And he said, right at the start, he says, you're always already free. You're already what you really are. You're always already free. I'm just going to help remind you of that. And for 3 days, I didn't tell a personal story. Well, what's left? Becoming. Being and becoming. You just come from what you really are because you've dropped all your psychology, you've dropped your story, and now you can only explore new things, be present.
Yeah, so you're saying get rid of the past, focus on the present and the future, I guess, kind of.
You're not going to get rid of the past because your past is still going to be stored in your head. Not live from your past. But living from your past is psychological. You're a walking thinking thing when you do that. You're a walking psychology, right? You're living from the past. You're almost never present, and you're building your future. But that's not what we're talking about. Being grounded in what you really are is immaculately present. Sure, your past is there, but you're not coming from that. You're coming from being in the present. I'm telling stories right now from the past a lot, but you and I are in the present. It's the only way we can have this conversation and let it go where it's going to go. This was not premeditated, or I should say pre-contemplated. This whole conversation just happened. So it's just unfolding as we go. I said the crux of a performance lifestyle was energy management, and that's true. Because I believe one of the best ways to get people to an awakened state is to get them to understand what they really are. Right? But it will quickly lead to the big kahuna. And the big kahuna is living a spirit-driven life. You realize that energy and spirit are 2 sides of the same coin. And when you get in right relationship with your brain, like I said earlier, every aspect of your lifestyle can improve immensely better. Because you're not just towing the line. What's the line? It's the story of your whole life. At one point in my life, I was like, wow, I pretty much never want to tell that story ever again. I'm done with that story. I want to go build a new one. You ever get to that point where it's like your routine, you're in a social setting and you tell the same story you've told 1,000 times before?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm done with that.
Somebody said today they wanted to interview me. I'm like, oh, I'm not ready yet. My story is still unfolding.
But you know how you develop the story?
How I do it moving forward, you mean?
Yeah, but how do you tell the story? You got to tell it in real time. Yeah. You tell it in real time, like you just jump into it. Yeah. Right? But you see,
I have so much going on though. It's like I'm excited about what's to come. I'm not really ready to.
Your story might actually be just where exactly you are. Yeah. It doesn't have to be this grand story. Like your story might be like I've been living a certain way for part of my life, a long way. Mm-hmm. All right? This is called real but optimistic leaning thinking. This is actually a fundamental of performance lifestyle. You talk about what is real. For the last 20 years of my life, I feel like a broken record. I've been telling the same stories from accumulated experiences up until I was about 25. And then I just sort of like, I was sitting on the sidelines and I'm telling the same stories over and over again. I do this, yada, yada, this is who I am, this is how I am. That's true for a lot of people. They have a couple great things happen in their life and then they coast. And then they just talk from that story the rest of their, for the next decade. But I'm at this point right now where that was all going on in my life, but now you have to be very real, right? But now I'm ready for a new adventure in my life. And that story is emerging. And that's your story. I have a story, you have a story. But you want to be talking about your story from a place of freedom. You are not your story. I'm not my story. That's just my experience in the world. But my story can change in a heartbeat. You remember before when we were talking about how, discover who you really are? You can't discover who you really are. I'm not even the same person who walked in here to this interview. I discovered new things here. So it's not like it's a one-time event. I'm going to be discovering who I really am and how I am, and it's going to be changing and in flux for the rest of my natural-born life. But what never changes? Discovering what you are, that's the same thing from birth till death. What you are is what you are.
Give me an example. One example.
Of what?
Yeah.
One example of what you are? What you are has nothing to do with your story at all. There's no story around it at all. There is no story around what you are, unless you're talking about what you are, and that would still be a story. But what you are is energy, and that energy runs on physics. There are laws, there are principles to how the world operates, okay? So the creative energy of the universe that's constantly unfolding is what you are in human form. That's what you are.
And essentially, embracing that is the ideal.
Well, when you go to meditation, you're not meditating on your thoughts. That's kind of like juice fasting. Juice fasting is not fasting. Fasting is you drink water. You're not fasting on juice. So if I sit there and go Om, or ominous, dominus, I am great, I am this, that's meditating on words. That's not meditating. Even meditating on breath is technically really not that meditating. When you're meditating, your eyes are closed, your eyelids are closed, but your eyes are wide open, right? So I'm moving my eyelids just so you can see. I'm meditating right now. I'm meditating while talking to you, okay? My eyes can see, and I'm meditating on what I am. You can actually see what you are. So, and it's going to be a little accentuated for both of us because we have a light in front of us. But if you keep your eyelids shut and your eyes wide open, okay? Look at the space. If you look at it really closely, like squint your eyes and focus in, squint your eyes in, you'll see that it is not sheer. It's not just black space, is it?
Well, I'm getting all kinds of weird things. I got a little bit of red and white there, but...
Okay, so you got some red and white, but look at the space itself. You can see it's teeming with energy. It's vibrating. It may take you a little time to acclimate your brain to it. But, when you're a kid and you're kind of staring off in the sun, you see little floaties going by. Yeah. And what you're looking at is called the ground of being. That's what you are. There's no thoughts in there like, oh, I have to go shopping. There's no thought there. That's a thought by your brain, and your brain is like your arm. It's an appendage. Now, if you lose your arm, you can survive. You can't survive if you lose your brain. But you are not your brain. What you are is before the brain. So when you get grounded in what you really are, you're grounded on what you are, which is the intelligent energy of the universe, the creative energy of the universe. Chi, prana, life force, the unlimited power within, the divine within, the awakening giant, right? The divinity within, your true potential. It goes by 1,000 different names, but that's what you are. Now, when you're primarily identified with that, now you got energy and intelligence driving the show. Not, well, I'm not really ready to give an interview because I don't know that my story is fully complete and da-da-da-da-da, or maybe I'm a little too scared, but maybe I'm tired. I'm not really tired right now, and what if last time I did an interview I clammed up, and because I clammed up I wasn't so good, and I'm not really sure, so I'm going to push this off. I'm going to wait another year, do 25 more personal development seminars, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? You could do that for years. Or you can just be ready. And how are you ready? You're ready when you're grounded in what you really are. Now, you may not be a pro. It may take you a little while to get your...
Pro at being what you are, you mean?
No, well, it takes a little while to become a pro at what you are. I mean, what you are is what you are. But you some of us, we have so much... We're so skilled at being a thinking thing and a walking psychology that sometimes it's a little hard to grasp, because you want to approach this from the standpoint of being intellectual about it, right? You want to approach this from your story. It's foreign to you, to who you are. And you have so much experience being a who and a how, being a thinking thing, that you can't just let go. But that's why I run people through this exercise. I want you to close your eyelids, but keep your eyes wide open. You can't talk about this conceptually. You have to get this experientially. And you can always tell somebody who's grounded in what they really are because they have the experience of being grounded in what they are, and they're coming from what they are. That's their primary identity. My primary identity is not John, born in 1968. That's my story. That's my experience. That's who and how I am in the world. I like this, I dislike this, I'm great at this, I'm good at this, this is what I do for a living. That's my who and my how. But this is universe talking to universe now, right? What talking to what? There you're free. When somebody says, hey, come on and tell your story, you don't care how the story comes out because you're on there as what you are. You're spiritually driven. And that's how you develop a story. Because if you're being authentic about it, your story will emerge. And now your fear is gone. You're no longer like worried about this or that. You're not worried about what people think, right? Oh my God, I said this. I bobbled this word. You're not in that space. That's all in your head. Believe me, I spent years there. You don't want to be in your head. You want to be using your head, not your head using you. That's the difference between what and who and how. So like when I teach, you don't even have to call it spirit. You can call it whatever you want. Energy driven, right? Authentically driven. Your true potential is driving the show. You could say it in a lot of different ways, right? Just depends on how you're influenced or what the context is. But what when you're coming from that, the great I am, holy cow, you are free. And you can approach, but getting back to the original part of our interview, now it's like, oh wow, that is a better way to eat. Yeah. I think I'll try that. You now have the ability to change. And at the end of the day, the greatest spiritual practice is being able to change. What enables you to change? It's when you're driven by your authentic self. And your authentic self can change very, very rapidly. Your authentic self, your story prevents you from changing. If your story is, I don't like beets, and I happen to have that story, I don't like beets. And it's probably not going to change anytime soon because unless you really dress up a beet, I personally don't like to eat beets. But let's assume I wanted to like to eat beets. I can't go into the beet eating experience with I don't like to eat beets. Because if I don't like to eat beets, I won't eat the beets. Yeah. But if I say I am open to beet eating from now on, I'm going to change my story right now in real time. Okay? I am open to, I'm at the National Health Association. I guarantee you there's beets on the menu, right? I am going to love beets today. And watch, before the end of this weekend, I'll start eating beets.
Yeah, self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. But it's not the small self. It's the big self. It's your higher self. You got to be coming from your higher self, not coming from your small self. Your small self is like a recorder. It's like saying, I am my arm, I am my arm, I am my story that happened 27 years ago when I ate a beet and it made me feel a little not so good in the throat. And it was the first time I had ever eaten beets, so I felt like I was going to throw it up. So therefore, for the rest of my life, I don't eat beets.
Yeah, it reminds me of like when I was a kid, I had mushrooms on a pizza. I got sick and I went home and I threw up, and the only thing that came out were mushrooms, it seemed like. And so for the rest of for decades I didn't want to eat mushrooms, and it probably was the cheese on the pizza or something. Who knows? But but it was like later on I was like, I keep hearing about how good mushrooms are. Fuhrman and his mushrooms.
Right.
But anyway, and next thing you know, it's like I love mushrooms. I could eat mushrooms every day.
I hated mushrooms growing up, probably because they looked like slugs in a soupy, salty, terrible soup. And I would chomp on them, and they had this weird texture to them, and I didn't eat them forever. I can't wait to eat mushrooms today. I could eat a whole sandwich of mushrooms. I could eat a whole bowl of mushrooms with a little flavoring on top.
But I was letting that story control me.
The story controls it. Whatever your story is exactly how it's playing out. You want to change your life? Change your story. How do you change your story? You can't change the story from within the story itself. You got to step back. Be grounded in what you really are, and you can change who and how you are. I'm going to change beet eating this weekend. You put me to the test, right? I'm going to eat the darn beets. Now, I don't have to love those beets. My story might end up becoming, listen, I eat beets now. I don't necessarily love beets, right? Unless they're flavored up right, but I'll eat them. I'm not going to avoid the nutrients that are in there. And I'm not eating that dish. It's got beets in there, right? That's all a story. Anyway, you get the idea. Yeah. So the number one principle of lifestyle as a whole is you've got to be coming from your authentic self. And your authentic self is not your story.
Yeah, hopefully people will take this and use this as a tool toward helping them understand people better and even themselves better. And then maybe somebody might use this as a way of trying veganism, not having a story tell them they can't be vegan, but
great.
I am somebody that I am, and I care. I may be, enough to try this,
I agree with that 100%. There's the vegan story. And vegans gotten beat up in the movies for years. What are you, a vegan? What are you, a weakling? What are you, this? What are you, that? They'll make jokes about people's ethics around not killing animals and, et cetera like that. So in other words, it's a stacked word. It's a lovely word, but it's a stacked word. Because culturally, it's been built up. So a lot of people say plant exclusive, or they'll say 100% plant-based, or whatever it is. The people who fight against this, like when I say, let's go to a vegan restaurant, if I say go to a vegan restaurant, half the people in that room are inevitably going to say, there's no way I'm going to a vegan restaurant. Like, you know how ridiculous that is? You're going to show up at a restaurant that has probably very sentient-oriented people, right? Who are very calm and loving and this and that because it's their nature.
And the last thing they want to do is go somewhere peaceful. They'd rather go somewhere violent.
And they're gonna serve you food that's gonna blow your mind on how good it is. But because you said it was a vegan restaurant, you're not gonna go. That person is story driven, or at least in that moment, they are story driven. They're not living from their authentic self and reading the room and going, well, sure, let's go. Does it even matter if it's vegan at that point, right? It matters, but you understand what I'm saying. Like you're just going to go and eat food. Both vegans have a vegan story, and people who don't eat vegan have a vegan story, and they're usually at odds with one another. We've got to tell that story in a way, like really, as people who eat largely, if not entirely, plant-based all the time, plant foods, plant exclusive, okay? Like, what's our goal? Is the goal to offend people and say, well, if you're not vegan, there's something wrong with you, or you don't care about the world, or you don't care about animals, and blah, 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 blah. That's almost like a Christian coming out right out of the gate and saying, unless you accept so-and-so as your Lord and Savior, you're going to hell. I mean, that's a terrible marketing campaign. That doesn't engage people to go, well, shoot, well, then I'll just become this today. I'm going to change my whole faith. That's not going to happen. And it doesn't usually happen. It's fear-based and it's not good. You got to get people on the train. And you take them as far as they want to go and as far as they can go. And you keep adding it into their life. I get back to what John Robbins said. If the world ate 10% less animal products, nobody is suffering from lack of food. That's just 10%. That's a huge outcome. You should be thrilled with that outcome. Get them to 30%, 40%, 50%, 80%, 90%. I've gotten people to eat 90% whole food plant foods, they might still eat a little bit of animal product here and there, and there'll be a vegan over in the corner going, where are your values? So you lose them, and they're just eating the standard American diet. Or I get them to 90%, and then what we talked about earlier, 90%, now you can get them the rest of the way because their values have changed. Their thinking has changed. Everything has changed. Their physiology has changed. And chances are pretty good they'll go long stretches of time. They'll never pick up an animal product, and they may become vegan for the rest of their lives. And by the way, that is the majority of people. The majority of people are looking at it from an eating and a fueling standpoint. They're not looking at it from an ethics because they're not seeing the slaughterhouse. You know why I, by the way, even though I don't talk about it a lot, have the ethical and moral standard? Did you remember I completely flipped my diet when I was 19 years old, and then I went out to Austin, Texas, and I started selling health courses with this guy named T.C. Fry, right? I completely switched my life. I went from one side of the world to the other in a matter of 12 months. I was riding my bike, and I happened to have been reading Diet for a New America by John Robbins. And I was in Texas, and I went into, and I was just reading through, because one of the things that John Robbins did in that book that was so interesting was he actually got his way into the slaughterhouses, and he talked to people, and he interviewed all these people, and he got all these inside stats, right? These amazing stats of what happens with slaughterhouses and all this other kind of stuff, right? I went into a slaughterhouse, and I went, whoa. I was riding my bike on a country road, and I was like, John did it, I'll do it too. And I went in, and I went into a slaughterhouse, and I actually saw what happens to the animals when they're getting slaughtered. Wow. I never saw meat the same way again. Not to mention the fact that meat, when you get it and it's all nice and pink, it's got sodium nitrate all over it, it's basically painted, right? Because normally it would be gray and like aging. I saw what happened to the meat, how it's treated, how it's slaughtered, how it's this, blood all over the floor. It was like being at a murder scene. It was like a crime scene. So I had that experience. Yeah. Now, that's totally to your point. Once you have that experience, boy, you're not going back easily. Yeah. Right? Because now you see what's there.
I used to smoke, and I used to tell myself, I need to smoke. And I noticed when I was trying to quit, other people were trying to quit around me, and they would tell people, they had their story like, I quit smoking, that's why I'm irritable. I quit smoking, and this is why. And it was like all these negative things around having quit smoking that they painted. And so me, I was like, I want to emulate a non-smoker, so I'm just not going to even talk about it. So I just started just behaving like a non-smoker. It kind of reminded me of that, what you were talking about there a minute ago, because like we want to create a story that's not negative. We want to create a story that's inviting, that's making them that's making them want.
Like come step into this whole new world of food where disease doesn't exist, where you get healthy, where your skin clears up, where your life gets better, where you free up time, where you free up energy, where animals get to live, right? And they're not just in museums, right? Where you can feel good, where you know your children are going to have water, right? Where there isn't waste polluting rivers. You know, this beautiful, amazing little 25,000 mile circumference planet that you can't even see from another planet because we're so small, we're like a speck of dust. This one place that doesn't exist anywhere, we have telescopes. We can look to like other parts of the galaxy, and there's nothing around us. You're living in Utopiaville, and we want to mess it up by sending methane into the air and shit into our rivers. Enter the whole new world of amazingness, of a great attitude, right? Of energy, right? Of life force. That is how you enroll people. Not if you do this, your ethics are wrong. If you do this, you're a terrible person. You've got to care. They probably care. Maybe they just haven't gotten around to that yet.
It's almost like I want to say we want to help people understand what they are, not who they are.
You want to help people change who they are.
By helping them understand what they are.
By helping them understand what they are. You're not your story. You're not the tradition that was handed down. You're not your thoughts. You're not the crappy feeling that you keep feeling day after day. You're not the black shadow that seems to be chasing you. You're not the stupid thing you did when you were 18. You're not that. You're not even your body. Your body's renewed every whatever, the 7 years, right?
Yeah.
You're not your thoughts. They can all change. Who and how you are can change. That's the message. Who and how you are can change. If we're grounded in what we really are, and you're coming from your authentic self is not story driven. It's not you telling your story hardcore. You could say, well, he's being authentic. Yes, he's being authentic to who and how he currently is. But he's not being his authentic self. Being your authentic self, you're open to what emerges. You're not coming from beating the drum of the same story. When I'm working with clients, I tell people straight up front, I'm like, great, thank you for sharing. Now, never tell that story again. Just never tell it again. When you walk out that door today, never tell that story again. Because that's who you and how you have been up until now. But if you want to change, you have to exit that story. You have to tell a completely new one, which means you got to get grounded in experience on the new thing. Once you do things once, you can do it again. Now, you can't say, like if I go and eat beets, now this story's been embellished a little bit, okay? But if I go eat beets and I enjoy them over the next 2 days, I really can't tell that story about how I don't like beets anymore, can I? No. It's really a lie, because I do like beets. Yeah. You got to get grounded in a new experience. You're never going to get grounded in a new experience if you keep coming from who and how you think you are. You got to get grounded in what you are and change. And there are spiritual teachers out there who will tell you that change itself is the greatest spiritual practice there is. If you can change easily and just flow from one thing right into the next, you would have to be spirit driven. You'd have to be coming from your true authentic self. Even if you don't maintain that change, because you realize once you get in there, I made this change, but I don't really like it. I'm going to modify it, or I'm going to come back. I'm going to go back to my old way a little bit because I think it was better. But I was at least open. And when you're open, you can actually change very quickly. You know, this whole thing like 21 days to change a habit. Yeah, that's because personal development people are talking to you like the psycho that you are. Right? They're counting on you being a psycho. Right? Because you're coming in there as a story. And their job is to come in there and change your story. Well, watch what happens when you get grounded in what you really are. You get grounded in what you really are, you watch how quickly you can change a story. Right? And you never lose your primary identity. Because if my identity were based on not eating beets, the minute I'm eating beets, I'm like, who am I? Why am I here? Where? What? I don't understand this world. You remember when I changed? Remember I went from a bodybuilder to 100% plant exclusive in 1 year. Back then, everything we're talking about here did not exist in my life. I went through years of an identity crisis. I had no idea who I was or how I was supposed to be or what I didn't know what was up or down. I mean, it was a strange world. I literally entered a whole new world. But you see, when you're grounded in what you really are, your world is always the same. Because what you are is timeless, it's formless, it's birthless, it's deathless, it's straight up, rock solid, absolute, same way today, same way with your eyes closed, same way with your eyes open, same way tomorrow, same way on Thursday as it was on Sunday, as it is on Tuesdays, will be next year, as it'll be 1,000,000 years from now. It's all the same. Rock solid, can always count on it, can always depend on it, right? Your impulse, intentions all stem from it, right?
Your intuition, your
intuition, everything. It's always solid. But that's my primary ID. That's my identity. I am that.
I am what I am.
I am what I am. I am, when most people say that, they're talking about who they are. They say, I am what I am, right? But what they're really saying is, I am who I am. That's a fixed mindset. We're talking about a growth mindset. Carol Dweck, right? She wrote the book called Growth Mindset. You have to be able to change. The only way you can change is if you're coming from flow. The only way you can come from flow is if you're coming from spirit. The only way you can come from spirit is if you're coming from what you really are, which is energy. And energy flows. It either bees or becomes. And it's good-natured. It's not crap-natured. It's not do evil natured. It's not. You know, we're talking about the God force here. We're talking about God within, entheos within. When you're enthusiastic, you're good natured. And then you get your brain on the same team with you.
Unstoppable.
The only thing you're stoppable by when you actually employ what I'm talking about, it's very easy. And this you have to be very careful of. When you no longer have the resistance of your brain, flow states will become your new normal. You can burn your body out very fast. You have to be very, very careful. Because you could be going all day long, free. You don't have any resistance.
Maybe that's where I'm at.
Oh, yes. A lot of people don't talk about this, but I remember I was talking to my spiritual teacher at one point, and I said, Jeff, man, I'm like, wow.
That's my name, by the way.
This is like, you're Jeff. Yeah. It's like, I don't even think we got our names down before we even came into this interview. You're like, come on over, let's do an interview, right?
Yeah.
I said, Jeff, I'm like, this is the greatest productivity strategy I've ever learned. Because you can flow all day long, but man, remember, you have access to unlimited amounts of energy in the world, but it takes space and time to regenerate it. Your body needs to stop. You can't keep going. You're not a machine. You're a biological machine, but the machines have electricity that's coming out of the wall. You have to regenerate it. You do run on voltage, but you have to regenerate that.
Well, that's part of what you are. What you are is something that needs that.
Well, your body, brain, and personality have to stop. Or I'll just say your body, brain. Your personality doesn't have to stop, but your body, brain has to stop. What you are never tires out. Okay. Who and how you operate in the world diminishes very rapidly. You follow? So if you go through life as a who, and you get tired, well, you think something's wrong with you. If you go through as a what, when you get tired, you're like, well, I'm tired. I've run out of energy. So my attitude's not as good. My body's not functioning as well. My metabolism's slowed down a little bit. I'm not digesting my food as fast enough. I can't put two words together. I'm stuttering, right? Yeah. There's nothing wrong with you. You're tired, man. Yeah. You're worn down. The machine doesn't have the power it needs to function. Yeah. You see that distinction? Mm-hmm. That distinction will change your life. Right? So what you are is your primary identity. Mm-hmm. And it's also a very practical thing. It is the intelligent energy of the universe. That's not a concept. When I close my eyelids and keep my eyes wide open, I can see the very thing I'm talking about. It's not a concept. This isn't like an intellectual concept. You can actually experience what you are. You will feel it moving inside you. What you are is as no nonsense a thing there is. That's why you want to get your head really cleaned up. Because, there are people who commit suicide out there. Mm-hmm. And there's a big problem with that. Once you commit suicide, you kill the body brain. And now you can't come back for dinner. And this too shall pass, right? There's a lot of people who died who'd probably still be alive if they gave it a little bit more time. And all of us have had those places where we're like, I think I'm going to exit, right? We've all been there. I've done it. You've done it. When you get grounded in your what, you can exit all that and come back for dinner. That's a beautiful thing, right? Because you can drop it, and then from that place, you can change the story. I often envision Robin Williams in this capacity, right? So Robin Williams was probably thinking when he hung himself on a door after that illustrious career. He was probably saying, I've got this, I think it was something Lewy disease. He had this neurological disease. He was probably sitting on the floor saying, wow, my whole identity is caught up being a comic. I can't be sharp anymore. I'm forgetting my movie lines. Mm-hmm. I'm remembering things. Sometimes I'm in, sometimes I'm out. I'm tired after 50 years of joke telling or 40 years of joke telling, however long his career was. And he was like, what's my purpose for even being here anymore? Worth $50 million, had a loving family, was still doing movies. Right? He had two choices. He could have said, I think the world will understand. I have to stop. And then he could have hung out with his family, hung out in his mansion, still had his friends around him, and lived another 40 years. Instead, he was so caught up in the story and the emotions that the story was dredging up that he ended his life. That's what happens when you're lost in your who and how you are in the world. and you're not coming from your authentic self. He probably got, this is a guess, so anybody watching this video, do not crucify me for this, but my guess is part of the reason why he actually got into that terrible neurological state was partly because, I don't know, have you ever seen that guy? He was always at the nines. He was always at level 10, always going. You know, another guy who's a great example is the Lincoln Park guy up Bennington, who committed suicide. He had $30 million in the bank. I did research on these stories. He had $30 million in the bank. He had royalties coming in from 20 years of doing records with Lincoln Park. He was about to head out on a world tour. He had people literally clamoring to hear his music. He had just launched a whole new set of songs, and he committed suicide. But I was thinking to myself, wow. I listened to a whole bunch of interviews on him, and he was talking about how he was crazy after his shows. He used to like wail, you know, he used to scream. That takes an enormous amount of energy. He was doing that 200 times a year.
When you first mentioned Robin Williams, my mind went to singers before you even went to Lincoln Park. But I've always had this theory, a lot of singers lose their voice. And I was thinking about that because like I've had this theory that, when they lose their voice, a lot of times they lose who they are. And then they go to drugs or they commit suicide. Right. Did he lose his voice or something? I don't know.
No, he wasn't losing his voice. Okay. I mean, I'm sure he had times like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's probably thinking, wow, I have 100 shows. I need to perform in front of 100 shows all over the world. I can't keep this up. He had 8 kids. He had to write the next album. He had to perform. He had to be a dad. He was making love with his wife. I mean, you know, you're a man. I mean, if you're exhausted, man, you like even like the most beautiful woman in the world could be in that room, and you're like, you don't want anything to do with it, because for men it's an explosion of goodness, right? But if you don't have the energy for it, you don't want to do it. Sometimes we are driven by the right head, right? And it comes down to an energy thing. I think Robin Williams suffered from it. Even Elvis Presley suffered from it. They said that Elvis Presley was so exhausted, he basically got too tired. He needed the drugs to get through his shows. He couldn't keep performing 6 days a week, doing all those shows. That's why I said I think the primary cause of disease today is overexertion. We've been talking for how long now, approximately?
It's hard to say. We'll say 2 hours.
Okay, 2 hours. I'm not even going to think about this, right? I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
Because it's just what occurred. But if I talked like this for the next 2 hours, on top of the 2 hours we just did, I'm going to be absolutely wiped out tonight. I'm going to be absolutely exhausted. Now, does that mean I'm a low energy person? Do I come across as a low energy person?
Not at all.
But right now, is my energy going up or down?
It's pretty static overall.
Is my energy going up or down?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily, doesn't seem to be going down.
Right, but my energy's going down. Yeah. Why? Because I'm up. You only experience energy when you're spending it. You feel tired when you're recuperating it. Right?
This is my 3rd interview today, so.
So you're going to start to ebb. But if you're Lincoln Park and you're Bennington, Chester Bennington his name was, right? And you're wailing at the top of your lungs for 2 hours every single night, 100 times a year. That guy, he was manic depressive. And he wasn't grounded in his true self. He was a walking psychology. He needed the drugs just to balance himself out. Same thing happened to Elvis Presley. Eventually, it was Lewy body disease, Robin Williams. It's called Lewy body. I can't really explain what that disease is. But it had a lot to do with what I'm talking about. And what I'm saying is you have to manage your energy. So if my identity is John's a high energy person, I mean, look at Tony Robbins. Why do you think he lost his voice? He lost his voice because he's been in that mode for a long period of time. You're going to wear your body out. And when we die, the father of modern day stress said, you're going to wear your body out. When you die, you don't die. Your body brain dies. You are the intelligent energy of the universe. You're going to keep going. No one's going to call you Jeff, and you don't have the body brain to answer, and you're not having waking up to have breakfast in the morning, but what you really are keeps going. That's straight up science. That doesn't even require belief, right? Because, energy cannot be created or destroyed, and what you are is the energy. You only experience that energy personally because you're in a body brain and you have a personality. So you're experiencing that energy in the experience that has arisen as Jeff. Even though you're going through life predominantly as what you are, you still feel what feels like a who and a how. You still experience it personally, but your primary identity is not your who. You're not caught up in your story. You're not lost in your story. Your story can change because what you are is your primary identity. And Jeff, there's nothing I could share with you from now until the rest of I'm dead that will beat that. It won't. There's nothing bigger than that. Like, where do you go from that? There's nothing bigger than waking up to what you really are. And when you wake up to really are, now you can change your small self. You can change your brain. You can reframe experiences. You can change all that kind of stuff. You can think better. You can change your emotions. You can change the feelings you've got associated to things, right? You can go get new experience and completely change your personality. You can't do that when you're a walking who, because you're fixed. This is who I am. This is how I am. Not going to change. Because you're not even in the posture for change. So if you want to get somebody who wants to move to a plant-exclusive diet, that person literally has to let go of their who and how they are and like, okay, I'm going to suspend that for a time being. Let's go eat. Let's just go do this. You get a new experience and you're like, wow, that freaking food was unbelievable. It doesn't even make any sense to say, well, it's a vegan restaurant. I'm not going to go. It doesn't even make any sense. It's food. Don't get caught up in the story of it. So when we said earlier, we're talking from the vegan side, vegans a lot of time are their own worst enemies because they're trying to get somebody to move to a healthier way of eating and save the animals, but the story they're telling about you becoming a vegan isn't converting.
It's not tapping into what people are.
It's not tapping. You're not talking to what. You're talking to their who. Right? When you're talking to what they are, that's a different way of communicating. Okay? But you got to have them enter into that new world. You want to be talking about the amazing stuff. You want to get them making a change without them even knowing they're making the change.
Yeah, because they don't even know what they're doing to begin with anyways.
Attacking their values or attacking their this. They don't even know what they're doing to begin with anyway. That's true of all of us, right? So, attacking their values or their ethics or their this or that they haven't even yet come to. They haven't had the experience. They didn't go into the slaughterhouse and see the slaughterhouse and watch the animal killed. That would hit them right between the eyes and they'd be like, fuck that.
This isn't what I am.
This is not only not what I am, this is not who or how I want to be. They haven't had that experience. Whereas I did, you did, right? So we have that element as part of our consciousness. But the average person hasn't had that. They've had Tyson Foods show up with these nice lean patties of food, just neatly colored and in round packages with, tied to a Super Bowl commercial saying, eat this, have fun, you're cool. That's the way their head's made up.
Served by grandmother.
Served by grandma, who, by the way, is doing it with love. So now you're locked in this double bind of it's bad, but it's good at the exact same time. And that's what we're really dealing with. That's what we're up against. If you're not going to beat them, you got to beat them with a message that meets people where they are. You got to meet people where they are and take them where we want them to go. Not tell them they got to get all the way to the promised land straight out of the gate. They're not going to do it. I tried that. It doesn't work. You'll spend your energy all over the map and not get them anywhere. You don't want to lose them from minute one, right? So if you want to get a sedentary person on the track, you got to get them off the couch, step one. Then you got to get them out the house. Then you got to get them walking. After they walk, they progressively jog a little bit. And then they associate a positive emotion. Oh, it felt pretty good. And then eventually you get them over to their jogging regularly. And then they eventually get on a track. And then the track, they're running the 100-yard dash. They're not going to run it in 10 seconds like Usain Bolt. That's optimization. Shaving off 1/10 of a second off your time. That's optimization. You got to get, they might run their 100-yard dash in 40 seconds.
You're connecting the who with the what.
Well, ultimately.
But the who can change.
Hold that thought for a second. The one way you can short circuit the entire process is you can do what I do. I just say, close your eyelids, but keep your eyes wide open. And I get them grounded in what they really are from minute one. I get them to just have an experience of drop your story altogether right now. And I'll have them do that for just 2 or 3 minutes. And I'll say, like, let me ask you a question. In those 3 minutes, did you think one bit about your story at all? No. If you do that long enough, you'll forget you even have a body, because you'll get lost in what is endlessly fascinating. And you'll be grounded in this. You'll just be hanging out, and you come out, and you're like, hey, want to go to that restaurant over there? Sure. Because they're not all caught up in the story of it. You can speed the process of change up by having a person have an awakening. I will usually lead with mindset. I'll talk about their mindset first. Appeal to something that a person is going to value. Like, people wake up to be successful every day. That's a truism. They wake up to be successful. They don't wake up to be healthy. Yeah. You know how much mileage I get out of that statement? Because I'm not like, you've got to exercise today. Yeah. Tell that to my brother-in-law, who's a vice president at Citibank, who wakes up at 5 a.m., has to get to a train by 6:30, get into the city by 8. He works a 12-hour day, gets back on the train, and has to get home by 9 p.m. and wake up and do it all over again. Beat that person up on how they're not making recipes that are this thick. But if I say, you wake up to be successful, or nobody wakes up to be healthy, they're like, yeah, that's true. You get a win. And that's true. Yeah. You wake up to be, no one wakes up to be healthy. You wake up to be successful. You want to be healthy. You want to have energy. You want to have health. But you wake up to be successful. Because that's what people value. They got to pay the bills, man. They got to pay the rent. They got to pay the house. They got to put kids through college.
Yeah, I was thinking it's kind of like you're meeting them where they're at when you frame it that way.
Correct. Yeah. Now, how do you do that without burning out and trading your health for success? Now, you got them hooked. Because now they're going to see the practical value in why you got to change that. Hitting them from the outside on ethics and this and that, and this one's going to kill you and it's going to give you heart disease. Nobody, you don't eat a bowl of French fries and get cancer overnight, and you don't eat a salad and get instantly healthy overnight either. You have to have a broader motivation to want to make those changes. But you want to get a person so riled up according to their true nature that they're like, shit, where do I start? How do I'm just changing this.
I'll quit my job.
I did that. Yeah. That's what the health reporter did for me when I was 19 years old. I'm sitting in our bodybuilder's gym. I'm like 19 years old, making $150,000 a year, doing what I love, working out. I'm eating protein, eating eggs, doing the whole thing. I get this reporter, and that upset the whole apple cart. But that thing was so inspirational. I'm reading through it going, holy shit. Wow. You mean diabetes is not a foregone conclusion? Aging can be changed? Heart disease isn't a given? Acne actually has a root to it? All of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I just took the red pill. And now you're out. That person will move mountains. That person will change. Okay? Even before they've awakened, even before they know what they are, even before they know any of that language, they will change if you hit them right where it matters most. And I happen to have been a sitting duck because I like Optimal. And I read Optimal. And it hit me right between the eyes. I changed. I sold my gym. I practically gave the thing away. I was like, this is a disease-causing business. I don't want that. I know some people think that's a little radical, and I hear you. Like, I missed the money. But I was truer to myself, and I felt a lot better. Yeah. Plus, I lost 100 pounds, and I got healthy for the first time. I was like a whole different person. Granted, I had to retrain the world on who and how I was, and that was a little bit of a stressful process. But remember, we're talking 30 years ago. We're talking, I'm 55, that was 19. You're talking 36 years ago, right? Did I do the right math? Yeah, that's 36 years. 36 years ago. And I didn't have any of these skills at that point in time. The bottom line on this is that there's more to lifestyle than food alone. And if you want to get successful at eating, you have to have more skills than understanding carbohydrates and protein. You have to have a lifestyle. You have to have the right mindset. You have to have the right skill set. The greatest skill is getting grounded in what you really are and right relationship with your body brain. That's when things start to work well, okay? Because you can't change if you're a walking psychology, because then you'll be coming from experience. And if you're coming from experience alone, then you're going to be facing every new change with resistance. And you can't even get into a new experience because you're still coming from the old experience, which is opposite of what you're now asking somebody to do. And then because they're not coming from their authentic self, in a lot of cases, they're coming from their story. You're going to try to hit them with this, that, and the other thing. And it's hard to get somebody, even for people who want to to be 100% plant exclusive all in one shot. You got to give them a chance to transition. I mean, there's practical realities to eating this way.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to change the way you shop. You change the way you do this. You change when you eat. You change what to eat. You change how the culture of food, where to go. I mean, there's a million things that are involved in this. So, we have to be compassionate with people. Anybody who's in my world who ever sees this video, they're going to see what my real ethics around food actually are. I rarely talk about these things. Right? And maybe after this interview, I'll be talking about it more. My actual values is that you should be eating as close to, if not a plant-exclusive diet, as possible. The better you get at that, the better you're going to be. The better the planet's going to be. The less suffering there's going to be. And will that displace a few people in the economic system? Sure. And I know it's hard, and we can learn to do other things. Okay? There's an economic reality to all this, which is hard to traverse because there are people who have businesses that are based on generations who raise animals for slaughter. And it's a strange thing, man. It's like, stop everything you're doing and move over and become car salesman, right? It's a big request, right? It's part of the reason why people don't change that fast, because they have a lot of vested interest in the way they do things and why they do things. So it's not simple. The change process is not simply, here's the case why this food is better than this food. You have to look at the structures that are being supported by that. And that's why it's hard to change. So even if a person is coming from their authentic self and what they really are, they may not be able to change, because in the world, that's putting their kids through college. You can't just change those structures instantaneously. You couldn't. I mean, I did, but I was only 21. I'm 19. I didn't have kids yet, right? But if I had had 4 kids and I was putting them all through college and I was in this business where people are working out and they're eating animal foods left, right, and center, and yada, 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 and if I had all those dependencies at the time, I don't know if I'd have been able to change as fast. Right. I don't know. But at the time, all I had to do was sign the place over to somebody else. They paid me 6 figures and I left. It was that simple. So there's more to this, but we have to be very authentic, very empathetic, and we have to show compassion, which, by the way, is I believe, vegan values to begin with, right? So we have to practice what we're preaching. Even if a person is not all the way, that doesn't mean they're bad people, and you just get them on the train, right? Either way, they're going to be better. And let me ask you a question. Like you're a pretty devout vegan, yeah? Okay. So if 50% of that 56 billion animals that got slaughtered last year were now alive and well and out in the forest, wouldn't you be pretty happy?
Of course, yeah.
Heck yeah! 26 billion animals didn't get slaughtered, and they're hanging out, living as sentient beings on the planet, eating grass, creating natural manure.
Or at least not being forced into existence.
Right? Or not being forced into existence. Aren't you going to be pretty happy? Yeah. I'm going to be pretty darn happy. Yeah, of course. Right? That's that much less methane farting that's in the air. That's that much less waste. That's that much less all that stuff. That is a massive step in the right direction, and that's the way we need to be thinking, in my opinion. But for most people, it's the very practical way to get them on the ship and get them rolling, right? Remember Meatless Mondays, all that kind of stuff? That's petty stuff. It's petty. Meatless Mondays don't do it.
It's ridiculous.
It doesn't do it. No, Meatless Monday, that's not a life philosophy. That's almost like go to church on Sundays, right? I'm going to go to church on Sundays for 1 hour, and I'm going to let God know that I'm doing all these great things, and then I'm going to go literally right back, like the mob, right? Remember the mob? Yeah. Right? They go to church, ominous, dominus, like this. They sit there, they give over some money, then they walk out and go whack someone, right? Yeah. That's what Meatless Mondays is really all about. It doesn't really do anything, but it helps. Yeah. Okay, for that 1 hour, multiplied times however many people do that, it does actually have a measurable impact. Yeah. But we gotta lead people with much bigger philosophical shifts.
Yeah, my biggest fear, with that is I know somebody who went meatless Monday and it didn't work for them at all because they didn't, experience all the physiological changes that come with this when you actually go 100%. It didn't change them at all. Their diabetes didn't go away. They didn't lose weight. Their taste buds didn't change.
It's like smoking one less cigarette after a 20-pack cigarette, right? Yeah. One less cigarette isn't going to do it. You gotta abstain. You have to abstain. Yeah. We're kind of saying the same thing because I'm saying make a deep philosophical shift, and that moves the dial. The other thing is, it's kind of like exercise. Well, I'll finish the statement, then I'll give you the analogy. If you just abstain, you'll change a lot faster. But it's like exercise. You can wait until you feel like exercising. And for most people, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Or you can just exercise and change the way you feel. Food is like that. Don't wait until you're like, sometimes for some people, if you don't have an influencer like me who's going to come in and help reframe how you look at life, like in a short period of time, and you don't have that exposure, don't wait till you feel like you're going to change the way you eat, because it's not coming anytime soon.
Unless the doctor tells you.
Unless the doctor tells you like you have 6 months to live unless you change your diet. And there are motivators like that. And we've given plenty of examples in this marathon of an interview, right? Or just go exercise and you'll change the way you feel. People have been trained in the reverse. They wait until their thoughts and feelings change until they take action. When it's completely dyslexic, it's backwards. You got to take action, and that will change your thinking and your feeling. You act. It gets back to the mother lode of what we've been talking about for the last 2.5 hours. You got to be coming from your authentic self. You're not going to take action. You're not going to take the action first and change the thinking and feeling to follow if your who is not set up for that action. It's easy for me to exercise. I identify as an athlete, right? And athletes exercise way more than non-athletes. People who identify as exercisers, they don't exercise nearly as much because they're doing it just because they think they should. When you come from a standpoint of an athlete, what does an athlete do? They train. What is training? Exercising. Do you have to convince an athlete to exercise? No. Your identity is everything. But if you come from your who, and your who is not I'm athletic, so therefore I train and exercise, but you're coming from your who, which is, oh my God, I gotta lose weight. I mean, I gotta go burn like 2,000 calories today. Total resistance. You're not gonna go exercise. And if you do, you're gonna have to will your way into it. But let's say you will your way into it. Better to go just do the exercise and don't even think about it. Don't worry about the thinking and the feeling. Just go do the exercise, and then you'll realize, wow, this wasn't so bad. Oh, and I'm oxygenated. And oh, wow, my endurance is improving. And wow, I lost a couple pounds. And I feel pretty fit today. I'm going to do this again. Now your thinking and feeling follows. It changes. Let's end on this. Coming from a human performance perspective completely changes the game. That's the top tier. When you understand human performance. When you understand human performance, now you got a full deck of cards to play with. If you're coming only from health and wellness, you're not playing with a full deck of cards. And you're probably not even dealing with the person's whole lifestyle, because what makes a person not want to eat better? They're tired, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed, their schedules, they're alone, they're a psycho, they're doing drugs. They got all these things that pop up, that changing their diet. Like, shoot, changing my diet? I got all this stuff going on in my life, and you want me to give up chocolate? You want me to stop drinking wine? Right? Hell no, that's my coping mechanism. That's because I haven't learned lifestyle yet. Once you learn lifestyle, you realize, oh, I see. So eating whole food, nutrient-rich is the coping mechanism. That's what gets me free of all that other stuff. So therefore, wow, now I get it. But you won't even make that change really well unless you have the ability to change. And you cannot will your way through change. There's not enough willpower to do it. You have to have an awakening. And that awakening, like I said, like we've talked about it's either gonna happen because you had a major life event that influences you, or you got a very motivating and inspiring new context for your life, or you've had an awakening and you're free, so you're not even coming from resistance anyway, right? Yeah. So it's a combination of that. It's not an exact formula, because everybody will be a little bit different depending on what's unfolding in their life, or what happens. But one of those things is generally one of those three things. So, but we got to get a whole lifestyle that's working for us, not against us, that's supporting us in what we're up to in the world. That is generally more of an athlete's mindset. And you don't need to be into sports or even a fitness enthusiast to do this. Okay? You don't. Everybody has a concept of what an athlete is like, right? They train to be good at what they do. They eat to be good at what they do. They think the way they do to be good at what they do because they wake up to be successful. With that mindset, now you'll start paying attention to your energy, you'll start paying attention to your health, you start paying attention to your performance, because ultimately it's about your success and your quality of life, your ability to give back, engage, and serve people, right? And you're not caught up with all this other stuff. When you have that big of a context, holy Moses, it completely changes everything. When it's juxtapose that against this small little, you mean I have to give up chicken? Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah. Like, no wonder you struggle.
Because you're hung up in this story, yeah.
Because you're stuck in this story, and you're not even stuck in the story, you're stuck in a little mediocre little piece of it.
Yeah.
And you can't get over it.
It reminds me of a phrase somebody came up with, consciousness health.
Conscious health?
Yeah, conscious health. Not health conscious, but conscious health.
Yeah. Yeah, you're conscious about health.
Yeah.
You have to be conscious. It's about consciousness.
Instead of being health conscious, it's the reverse. It's like, it's bigger.
Yeah, it's conscious health.
Yeah.
It's conscious. It is. You're conscious. You have to raise your consciousness to embody all of this. That's how you build a lifestyle. Yeah. There were things that I did, and we're definitely finishing on this. There were things that I couldn't do at certain times because I didn't have the consciousness to perceive it. Mm-hmm. Once I woke up to it, I was able to do it. Yeah. But until I woke up to it, I wasn't able to do it. Wake up to what you really are. Get grounded in and highly skilled in advanced rejuvenation and recovery. Because that creates a new structure for your life and gives you the energy to do what you got to do. Manage your energy like a pro and develop a performance lifestyle, right?
Yeah, performance lifestyle, that's what I was going to say. I really like that. I've never heard that before. Now I feel like I understand it.
Because now everything's working for you. Yeah. Including your diet. Mm-hmm. Not limited to, but including your diet.
Is this something that you came up with? Performance lifestyle? Is that
No, I didn't actually come up with the name. The name was actually born in elite athletics.
Okay.
But I bought up a lot of the intellectual property, like the domains, and I trademarked it, and I'm not preventing people from utilizing the term. I'm simply saying that I mean, as a business, yeah, but not from utilizing the term. But I spent 25 years defining it. I mean, I had to go on a literal hero's journey to pull that idea together, because it's really the rise of a new lifestyle. It's the next step in the evolution of lifestyle. You're not approaching this purely from health and wellness anymore. It's inclusive of health and wellness, but it's bigger than health and wellness because it's really about human performance. When you're coming from a higher tier of living, you'll value health and wellness a lot more because athletes, Joel Fuhrman talked about this all the time. Whenever he used to talk about athletes, because Joel Fuhrman, I don't know how many people know this about Joel, but Joel's an elite athlete. Yeah. He was third in the world in figure skating. He lives a performance lifestyle. He teaches nutrition, but he has an athlete's mindset. That's one of the reasons why, when I worked for Joel, I could barely keep up with that guy. Yeah. He was like, how do you do this? Yeah.
He still is.
He's a highly skilled human being.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, highly skilled. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn that. But you will not mess with your diet after that. Because once you realize that, wow, if you're living a performance lifestyle, you eat a whole food, nutrient-rich diet.
That's the way it is.
And nutrient-rich is plant. It's plant, period. It's not animal, right? And I know this is a little controversial for this channel, but you could still eat small amounts of animal products and still be eating nutrient-rich on a total dietary intake basis because you're predominantly plant, right? I'm not promoting that. But I acknowledge that you may do that.
Of course. I don't know what the point in the knowledge. They may do anything, really.
Right. They may do anything. But the point is, right? I'm just acknowledging it. Like, I'm just not making, I don't make an issue out of it. Yeah. Right? But what I do make an issue with is, don't think for a second, don't be delusional in thinking that those are nutrient-rich foods. They're just foods that are rich in some nutrients.
I guess the point in bringing that up is, well, you might do fine, but that isn't because those are nutrient-rich foods. It's because of the other nutrient-rich foods that made those fine.
Correct.
That made those bearable.
That's part of the reason why the ketogenic people, we're going right back into content again. We'll do it. That's part of the reason why ketogenic people get away with their diet. Because what ketogenic people do, and paleo type people, right? People who buy into that paradigm, which is not promised land, it's Middle Earth. right? The standard American diet is, the default.
Yeah.
Then there's the promised land. This is where you actually arrive to the new promised
polar
land,
extreme, yeah.
right? But there's a middle earth. There's a middle gap there. That's middle earth. Your foot's partly in the old, partly in the new, but you're not really committed to either one of them.
Yeah.
Okay. But part of the reason why, when you eat like an Atkins type style diet, a paleo diet, a nourishing traditions type diet, a ketogenic diet, they're all kind of based in largely animal foods. Mm-hmm. But the reason why people are able to get by in these is because they also eat a lot of vegetables. They eat some fruit, not a lot, but they eat a lot of vegetables, right? It's generally a healthier diet than the standard American diet. And they get better. Their numbers improve, things improve, a lot of things drop, right? It's a long-term experiment on what's going to happen in the future, yeah. But at least it's a big step up. Mm-hmm. And you got to applaud that. Mm-hmm. You got to applaud that. It's not an end game, though. Mm-hmm. You're not there. Mm-hmm. You haven't arrived yet. You're stuck in Middle Earth. You're in purgatory, right? You got to get to the promised land. But they're eating nutrient-rich foods around their nutrient-poor foods. They've largely gotten rid of the nutrient-barren foods. But they're largely eating nutrient-poor foods, but they fill in the gaps with nutrient-rich. That is not what's going to get you to healthy at 100. It's not. You got to get to predominantly nutrient-rich foods. Even if you eat a small amount of animal product, it's got to be less than 10%. You know the blue zones, right? Yeah. The blue zones, the Okinawans, the Vilcabambas, the Ocasians, the Hunzas, they're all 6%, 5%, 2%, 4%, but they live to centenarians because they're largely plant-based diets. And that would be a good move, as we've discussed many times.
And some of those blue zones are 100% vegan.
And some of them are 100%, because you don't need the animal products. You just don't need them for nutrient X.
None of the blue zones are carnivores.
None of them are carnivores, like the Eskimos, who are dead at 50, right? Whose skin looks so brittle, they look like they're going to tear. Forget break down, they look like they're going to tear, and their teeth are not that good. And we're not making this interview be about this. I know there's tons of people out there with, people who's that dentist? The dentist who went all over the world. I haven't talked about him in so long, I forget his name. But anyway, he went and he did dental records on it, and they use all this kind of obscure stuff, whatever. Listen, at the end of the day, you can make all these archaeological decisions to try to prove your point, theories, right? But you weren't there, right? He wasn't there, okay? And it's always nice and convenient. People love those types of arguments, right? They love those types of arguments. Well, there it is. It's stated. Archaeological evidence says.
Never mind the fossilized feces full of fiber.
Yeah, nothing. Never mind all that stuff, right? Never mind all that. It just all depends on what they're selling. No water, no fiber, low to no carbohydrate, no phytochemicals, vitamins and minerals that are there to some degree, but have already passed through an animal's metabolism. They're not even in their raw form anymore. Dietary saturated fat, which you don't need. Dietary cholesterol, which you don't need. And then you cook the stuff at 400 degrees. It's got advanced glycation
end products,
right? Heterocyclic amines. It's got
trimethylamine and oxide.
All the waste products, all the feces from the food.
Oxidized heme iron.
Oxidized heme iron. What was it? Sulfate, right?
Well, sulfur-containing amino acids.
Right? Spray chemicals on it, and it promotes rapid growth, rapid hormone release. We could just keep going on this.
Insulin growth-like factor 1.
Insulin-like growth factor 1 goes up through the roof. Arguably the number one cause of cancer promotion.
Sialic acids.
Yes.
Arachidonic acid.
By the way, takes a battleship of water that you're taking away from your kid's future. Or
tainting at least.
Right, or at least tainting, right? It's going to take all the water. It's tainting the water and it's consuming huge amounts of water, killing the rainforest, wiping out all of our open-faced land.
Zoonotic diseases.
Throwing tons of methane into the air. Great. Everybody in the world should be eating animal products. Become a carnivore. I was just going to say, what planet are you living on? But what planet will there be left to live on with that strategy? Oh, but by the way, you'll lose weight and you'll lose some weight. Oh, and by the way, the people telling you to lose that weight tell you can't be living on this diet for that long themselves. So, but it tastes good? I mean, I don't know.
Another thing is fostering a violent culture. If you look at the most violent people, like serial killers and stuff, they start off hurting animals. These are zoo sadist people. There's something to say about somebody who is indifferent to the harm that's inflicted on other sentient beings.
I really can't speak intelligently on all that stuff, but I imagine.
I mean, it's easy to at least assume it's fostering a violent
Yeah, I mean,
world.
so I think that's a reasonable assumption if your job each day is to slit the throat of another being, right? I imagine that would probably be true.
I mean, think about the contrast between, like, you got your concentrated animal feeding operations and slaughterhouses versus food forest and greenhouses.
Oh yeah. They're two different minds and mentalities. And by the way, I say that I have to say this, representing my own brand in the world, that I have empathy for people who do this, and this is how they pay their bills, right? I understand you wake just like anybody else. You got to wake up to be successful each day, and this is what you're doing. Hopefully you can change. I know you're putting your daughter and your son through school, and I know you're raising, this is the culture you're currently in, but it's just the one you're currently in. It's not the one that you could be in.
Yeah.
Right?
And there's people that'll help them change.
And there's people that'll help them change. If anybody follows any videos or any channels that I run, this is always not my primary message, but eventually it gets here. And our interview today got us here. I don't mind talking about it because I want people to know where I stand. Right? True human performance, if you're really aligned with the fundamentals of healthy and successful living, true human performance does not kill the planet. It does not kill other beings. Your
violent.
success can't be dependent on others' death.
Yeah, on violence.
Okay? It can't be based on that. And spirit is not based on violence. It's not based on evil. Spirit is based on good. God is good. You've heard that statement, right? The universe is essentially good. This was great today.
I think you're well on your way to seeing your daughter turn 50, I hope.
45 more years.
I have a 19-year-old son. I would do anything in life to stop the world for.
How old are you now, 30?
50.
You're 50?
Yeah, I'm 50.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, so shoot. Okay, I have a 16-year-old, so we want to see our kids when they're 50. And I mean, I don't know about you, but man, that's a big driving force for me. I want to be with my daughter as long as possible.
Yeah, super centenarian would be ideal.
That's up to what age?
That's, I think, over 110, I think, or something like that.
Listen, if we can be there and we're, 110 might be the new 80.
Yeah.
Right? Remember it's like 60 is the new 40? 110 might be the new 85. I don't know. To do that, I firmly believe you have to live a performance lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because you can't be a one-trick pony. We've got to pay attention to a lot of different things. You got to pay attention to your human performance. That means pay attention to your spirit, your energy, your consciousness. That's by the way the new marketplace that's opened up. Some people call it biohacking or lifestyle optimization. Right? Oh, mindfulness is just one aspect of it. But it is one aspect of a holistic lifestyle. You want to develop all these capacities. And you just stay on that path. You can't be a one-trick pony. Have all kinds of stuff going on around you, but your diet's great. Right? It's got to be more than that. If we're going to go to be healthy genuinely at 100, the people who are healthy at 100 didn't just have a healthy diet.
I mean, there's a couple of anomalies, and people love to fix it. Oh, I know this guy, he drank and smoked and this, that, and the other, and lived to be 120.
Yeah, the George Burns effect. Remember George Burns? He was 95. He smoked for like 70 years. Yeah. He also stood in one place and laughed for 70 years.
Dr. Bernard says, living that long is a combination of genetics and good luck.
It's genetics, good luck, but it's lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle. Absolutely.
If you really get into it and you recognize what lifestyle really is, they had some cocktail of good fundamentals that enabled their body. So part genetic, probably 5% genetic, probably 90% lifestyle, and another 5% luck.
Yeah, because, if you look at it, like the average lifespan is about 85 or whatever, and just rounding up. About 14, 15 years is the average extended lifespan, just changing diet.
Just changing diet. Oh, right, exactly. So that means, could we add an extra 30, 40 years to our life? Heck, if you're managing your energy and you're doing all these things, I'd like to believe so.
Yeah, well, hey, if we do, we got to do another interview.
Well, we'll have plenty of time to do a lot more interviews. Jeff, this was great.
Yeah, man.
All right, man.
Thanks so much.
It was great.
And don't hurt me now. I'm not a bodybuilder.
You're looking pretty strong yourself.
Yeah, I don't do anything, but hopefully after this interview I'll be inspired to. I was at the vegan bodybuilding competition recently. I might as well say that, the Vegan Health and Fitness Expo. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
That was a blast. I was just interviewing people outside. This interview will go great with all of those interviews I got there. A nice run of athletic type people. Because normally I've been getting everyday people, typically is what I've been getting. I haven't really shed light on the potential to go further in other ways, like physically and stuff. So
Yeah, well, vegan bodybuilding, I'll just say this before I go.
yeah.
Vegan bodybuilding will get bodybuilding. I mean, I love bodybuilding. I grew up in it. I grew up in the golden era of bodybuilding with Arnold Schwarzenegger and, Tom Platz and Franco Columbu and all these guys. And Classic Physique, they had classic physiques. Yes, they were using, some PEDs and they were eating lots of animal products, but they were more the classic physique style. That was the golden age of bodybuilding. Then it turned into like mass monsters, right? Like really big, heavily drugged, guys taking it to just ultra limits. And that's not been good for the sport of bodybuilding. Vegan bodybuilding would actually naturally take it back to classic physique because you're not meant to be a mass monster. You're not meant to be 290 pounds, rock solid, ripping muscle, right? You're meant to be maybe 180, 190. And you can do that. You're not going to turn into a mass monster eating romaine lettuce, and it's not going to happen. And I'm not even sure vegan bodybuilders want to be like that, right? But you'll have your health. You won't worry about liver disease. These bodybuilders, they die of liver disease. They die of cancer. They die of heart disease. They have bypass surgeries. They're dead in their 40s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s. Every once in a while you get a 20s, right? Their 50s, their 60s, 70s is like the top end. It's like the top end. And one of the only reasons why that Arnold Schwarzenegger is still going as strong as he is he changed his diet to a plant-based diet. That's why he's on Game Changers. He's on Game Changers. He's one of the producers of that. Such a smart guy. He's like, once he got it, he was like, ooh, I am changing.
Yeah.
And he never gave up his love for bodybuilding. He still does it. But he acknowledges you get all the protein in the world from plants.
You gonna check out Mr. America this year? Mr. America competition in New Jersey. And they're going to have all kinds of different athletes. Vegan Strong is going to be there.
Oh, great. Maybe I'll meet you down there.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Because I love bodybuilding. Bodybuilding's a great sport.
Yeah. And this is more athletic stuff, but that too,
Yeah, no, I'd love to come. Like I've spent a lot of time at like the NHA conferences, Joel Fuhrman conferences. I go to a lot of different conferences of this nature, but if it's the last 5 to 8 years, I've been to too many.
Well, hopefully we'll see you at Mr. America.
I'd love to see Vegan Strong. I'd love to be at Mr. America.
Yeah.
It's great.
Cool.
Awesome.